Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Four Nations. Playoffs continues tonight, and we have a very important match this evening, everybody. The stakes actually maybe couldn't be higher of this match, considering the entire year. My name is Trajan. I'll be your desk host for this evening, and I'm joined by SIM and Rory B. Welcome, gents. And our match today is Broad and Friends versus Good Chi. Now, both of them came out of regular season with a pretty similar record. 5-4 for Broad, 4-5 for Chi. Both have had ups, they've had downs, they've had roster moves with questionable reasons behind them. They've had roster changes that we love, they've had ones that we don't love. But ultimately, SIM, this is now, they've wound up converging at about the same point where this series becomes so hard to call.
Yeah, completely correct. And of course, today is going to be interesting with those takes. And if we see like some of the trajectories of the teams already, it is really difficult to say like, oh, is Gucci actually in kind of a slump, or is it actually Broad and Friends that are playing very well right now and that they are there to play even more? So I'm really wondering how this series today will conclude. But before that happens, we of course have to play the series.
Yes, and to be honest, trying to guess who's going to show up, that kind of does speak to the nature of these teams recently, is which team's going to show up, which Broad, which Chi, who's actually going to arrive here, we just don't know. Rory, do you have a sense of who you think is actually on the up and up right now? Because who do you think is actually going to show up ready and correct today? Do you think they're both going to be on it? Do you think someone's going to be struggling against the other?
So, I don't want to do spoilers for predictions later, but I do think with the new roster inclusions, for sure in the jungle and Rhythm in the ADC role, Gucci are 100% on an upswing. Honestly, I feel Broad maybe a bit stagnant. They're kind of where I was expecting them to be. So I can't say they're on an upswing. I think they're on a bit of a meander.
that is a great word to use, to be honest. After a rough mid-split, good end of split into that Int-Quick series and the tragedy that wrought upon the Broad and Friends fans, they have meandered their way right down to the lower bracket, and if they do not win this series, they will not make RPS. They had to come into playoffs and they had just win one series and you're in. They lost the first one largely through their own mistakes and throws, and they now are sitting here against the resurgent Chi, and they have to win or the entire 2025 year has been for naught, because they will not qualify on points otherwise. Now, they could win the whole split and qualify that way, but they could just get one split and then it's locked in. Let's look at Broad first. Let's get the roster up here. And SIM, for Broad and Friends, obviously we've gotten very used to this roster. We know them very well right now. Given the suspicious nature of Broad, do you think there is anyone on this roster that we can look to as being more consistent, as being a more reliable win condition today, as opposed to those that have maybe struggled a bit more?
Ooh, I think that's a difficult one, because I always have two players in mind when I see a team like this. Of course, QQR is one of the first one that comes to mind, because, well, his performance on the mid lane thus far has been fairly consistent, and he has been, like, important during wins. But I've also seen Spark just pop off on some of the newer AD carries. Yonara, I'm still looking at you, because, well, this champion is just pick or ban. But of course, Spark on different AD carries, like during the various meta as well, he has had some pop-off games. So I also see him, if he's being brought into a carry position, that he can make the difference for a team like this.
Yeah, now we have a couple of VTs to show for Broad here, because the issue with them is when they're good, they look so good, and when they're bad, it seems like two different teams that play it, right? We pulled together an example of the good and the bad, and this first is an example of a good Broad play, right? They're all on the same page. Rory, looking at the way they play out this fight, what is it that strikes you about this Broad team? What are the strengths that are on display here?
So, Broad are actually very good at pressing the go button. I really like it. They have very concise comms where they're just going, we collapse now. Usually I feel like it's Akkers on more of an engaged, focused champion like the Gragas, who is able to make that call, and immediately they all just go, yeah, chill, let's jump them. But sometimes it can get a little messy, because sometimes they try and get into the position to make that call and actually find themselves up a certain creek.
Yes, sometimes we do have calls that do not pan out, and SIM, you can tell us maybe a little bit about, I guess, the south side of Broad, the reverse that does not seem to pan out. Like I said, it just doesn't look like the same team from clip to clip.
It is sometimes just fairly difficult to pinpoint it. Like when we see Broad in like the really good position as before, like of course we see Akers and Zeta basically being on the same line, but sometimes like in the play we've just seen, they're just fighting scattered all over the place. It's just like there's no form of cohesion anymore, and it is interesting to see that a team can have like their major ups when they are just one singular machine and everyone is just like a cog in the system, or they're just all individuals solo queue players and they're trying to get their own plan to work, but no one is going for the same plan. So 5 plans executed at the same time, none will succeed in the end.
Yeah, pretty much. It is kind of a tale as old as time when it comes to League of Legends now. We've seen teams like this suffer from the highest to the lowest levels of competition, and Broad sadly does seem to have that curse about them right now when they cannot get on the same page. When the decision making is good, they are, as you say, Rory, they are decisive, they are cohesive, and they play well together. When they're not, when the calls are split, as SAM said, they are headless chickens. They are clueless, and it all falls apart so quickly, and much worse than the sum of their parts. Now, let's pivot to Chi. Let's get the Chi roster up here. And this is, as we kind of touched on, a couple of key roster changes have been made for playoffs. Rhythm in the bot side and Forsure in the jungle. I must say, Rhythm does add quite a huge amount of aura to this lineup, given this shot that we've used. So there's definitely intangibles being added, and there's very reliable AD carry play. So, Rory, given these two changes, you seem very high on these changes, right? You're very happy about them. Why is it that you think these are such a successful addition to the Gucci roster, especially late in the split as well?
I just feel like Rhythm is more consistent in the early game than Maro, who was previously on the roster. Just seeing him play over the years, I do prefer Rhythm in that slot. Not to slight Maro, I think he's a great player. I just unfortunately think Rhythm is better, especially fitting into this lineup. When you're really... Loopy isn't generally on a carry, and we've seen Forsure all over the place, role-wise, over the while, but it really makes me feel like Forsure is more of a frontline player where you're leaving Korosh and Rhythm to really dish out the damage.
Yeah, for sure. It does seem like having that second reliable carry next to Korosh is very, very good. But SAM, what is your take on... Because we've seen a lot from Rhythm in the past, is a championship-winning player, but we have this clip rolling out of some good kind of individual play, and it shows the carry potential here of this roster. But what is your take on Korosh and Loopy from that top and mid side? How do you think they stack up in terms of playoffs, in terms of the other kind of heavy hitters in the league right now?
Well, it is interesting, right? Because they all started at the start of this season with a really nice win streak that people didn't necessarily expect, because they also took down Int Quick by then. So we were like, okay, we're on the high. Gucci has a team that can apparently stack up against the big hitters as well. And during the rest of the split, things got apparently so much worse that they had to switch out the AD carry, that they had to switch out some of the positions, and now we are in a position that it is nice to see that you have a jungler that can show a little bit more playmaking and aggression, and Loopy is still the top laner that I want to say takes on a lot of the neutralizing roles, if it isn't for the fact that he really likes his Urgot from time to time. So if he can get his hands onto the Urgot, then we will probably see him play that. But for the fair rest, it's just a play that is trying to play for the team, not necessarily for himself, and that's also just what this team is setting him up for.
Now, in that clip, we did see, I guess we saw the kind of difference between those two clips, Rory, that you had kind of teed us up for a little bit there when we were prepping for the show, that the first one goes very, very well. The second one kind of goes nowhere. So tell us a little bit about this issue for Chi.
I think anyone watching that Game 2 versus Bulldogs, they were scratching their head a little when it came to around the 20-minute mark. Both teams just decided there was only one lane, except for Jax, who was side pushing for a lot of the time. But what happened was, Korosh really strong. He was something like 6-0 on Orianna. And the team said, let's force a fight with our strong picks. They were massively out of sync, though. And it seemed like they didn't really know how to get to the spot they wanted to go into. And frankly, Broad are a team where if you do things out of sync, they are good enough to just wipe the floor with you before your carry gets to the fight.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's definitely power here, right? That it seems like upgrades are being made. The ship is rowing in the right direction. We're not perfect yet. We're not where we need to be. Well, maybe we are. We're not where we want to be, perhaps. There's still room to grow for this roster. But let's take a quick look at our predictions, because both of these teams have defined strengths and weaknesses, and this one is going to be pretty tough to call. I think we teed it up like this, and it's 2-1 for Broad so far. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, SAM, is I'm going to ask you to cover my ass and defend your Broad 2-0 prediction, so that I can then dilute it and take the sort of morally vacuous centrist position and say 2-1 Broad. So I'm going to ask you to do my work. Go ahead, defend the Broad prediction, please.
Okay, so for me, the fact that Broad has just been improving over the entirety of the season, and then now maybe have like a little bit of a slump, they still made it to the upper bracket part. Okay, they lost against Intquick, but come on, Intquick is just one of the better teams out there.
Goats,
you win
you
some,
know?
you lose some, and for Broad, they're one of those teams. When we've seen them beforehand, maybe they could have lost against Gucci, but now we are in a situation that they want to fight for that playoff spot, that they want to go to the next tournament, and that's why they will win today 2-0.
Yep. 2-0. Okay, so, you know, given that I am taking the 2-1 position, and we'll just take whatever SIM said and then kind of multiply it by 0.8, and that's my position. Good Chi predictor over here. Rory, why? Tell us why you think they are now able to take down Broad.
Well, you know, rooting for Broad and saying they have the power of hope is good and all, but Good Chi, you know, have the power of better players. They have the power of fewer throws in the mid-game that Broad are just plagued with. If you watch a Broad game, you're like, oh, it's never over, because there could be 8k up and then completely throw a lead. And that sort of inconsistency, I will never bet on. And so I did say Good Chi 2-0. And honestly, Good Chi could get smacked, but I don't expect them to. I expect Broad to go even in the early game. Sure, that's fine. And then it hits mid-game, and poor Akers decides to 1v5 and completely run it and give Barrett.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it happen.
Yeah.
We've seen it before.
So
There's
many
clips, there's
times.
evidence. The evidence is on the Twitch channel. The evidence is on the Vods, guys, you can find it. But SAM, look, we're going to get into draft very soon, so once that comes up, we'll switch over. But look, so it seems like Rory is very much on the, just, as he said, better players. Are they better players? Are they actually better players?
Loopy's the worst top laner in my opinion. But, well, let's be honest here. But when it comes to this bot lane, I think Good Chi have it pretty much in the bag versus Sparking Zeta.
In the bag.
Unless
Very
Zeta has a
confident.
wonderful Alistair performance.
It's hopefully better than Akker's Alistair performance, but we shall see. Let's get into the draft right now. Junglers are starting to fall. Zyra and Jarvan. Zyra, of course, buffed on this patch. And then we have some targeted bans away from Broad, taking away the Good Chi Classics, the Taric support for Chompy, the Urgot Loopy top side. Now, SAM, what are we thinking as a power pick for Good Chi? They've got the B1. Looks like they're going to have their comforts removed, but what's a general good start to this draft for them?
I think there are multiple positions. Of course, the Yunara is still open, so as long as this champion remains open, it will be a menace and probably be picked up. If it isn't for Broad and Friends, maybe banning it out like right away when they see the opportunity right now. Other champions, well, I was also thinking about the Varus, but he kind of dropped in popularity with his lethality build, of course, dropping. So, okay, Yunara's open.
Yunara and
So
Azir.
this,
I think we've not seen the Rhythm Yunara yet, but not to say that it cannot be played. But I think we've seen it from Spark. I think we've seen it from the other side, and instead gone for the Trundle. Now this is, you know, we're assuming going into the jungle. Of course, technically flexible to top side. Loopy's the kind of guy who I wouldn't be surprised if he could play it. But Rory, with a B1 Trundle, what is now the potential answer that this leaves open?
I mean, look, this is a massive cooled shot onto Porp saying, I don't think you can play AP champions. Which is actually quite funny to me because I think Porp's most played are Wukong, Xin Zhao, and Jarvan this split.
Yeah,
so
and maybe
sure.
Pantheon as well, right behind. Because I was expecting maybe a Pantheon to just slam it, but that one will happen some point, I think.
So yeah, with this Wukong and then the Aurora, this is actually quite nice from Broad because Akers can play Aurora top. So they're definitely leaving a flex open to try and get premium picks into either Loopy or Korosh. I think you really want to prioritize your pick into Korosh, to be honest. So
Yeah,
we'll see where the Aurora goes very soon, I'm sure.
we normally see something a little safer from QQR, I think, with a bit more range, like Syndra or the Vigar. And Aurora kind of has to get stuck in a bit more, and that is a little risky because Kurosh is certainly, I think, the mechanically stronger player out of the two. But we'll see what the option is going to be for Kurosh. With the Orianna banned, it's going to be the Victor, so not necessarily the most dominating 1v1, can easily just kind of opt out of that lane 1v1. But of course, Aurora will likely get outranged and is unlikely to bully Kurosh, I suppose. But we have this kind of nice scaling option in the mid lane. We'll see what the last choice for Good Chi is going to be, SAM, and this is now expecting, I guess, potentially just locking in like a good AD carry. We're still, as we say, the Yunara still live, and we don't want to eat more bans for Rhythm, perhaps?
You'd hope so. Like, I'm hoping, of course, a lot of things from this draft, because I'm seeing a Victor, and the last time that I personally seen a Victor in the league, they went for a 0 damage build, so I'm also hoping that this Victor will not just dunk a lot of ages into bloodletters, but will actually try to deal some damage during the game. But they instantly get rid of their flex. Unless Chompy plays Trundle support, but that hasn't been played for so long. Like, I'm going to throw it out there.
Would be a deep cut. Would be a deep cut. The Loopy Scion, of course, not so much. That is a common pick for Loopy. He's very consistent on it. They've already got the Trundle to take away at least some sort of answer, and Akers, at least, you know, on the Aurora, you're unlikely to crack the Scion fully. Like, he's just going to build MR first, and that's going to be all right. And they've locked in a nice Zeta Nautilus support down there for Broad and Friends. Now, Rory, you seem kind of querying what the kind of theory is going to be right here. What are the questions that have been raised here?
I don't know if you need to pick the Naught here. Like, I feel like if Akers went Gwen, it would be a really nice pickup, and you basically have a free lane. Aurora can play into Victor pretty safe because she has better wave clear early, and she can roam. But yeah, going for a Nautilus here, sure, I kind of get it, you don't want it banned out, but I think there's enough engage supports available to Broad where 2 bans isn't enough to really pinch what they're looking for down there.
Yeah.
Do we even want to see Akers on something like a Gwen? I feel like is also a big question, right? Because we've also established that a lot of the engage potential comes out from Akers together with Zeta. So now if we throw all of the engage on just Zeta and Pop, then okay, Akers can make some nice plays maybe in the backline, but like the bread and butter of like your engage composition now does fall apart.
Maybe it gets a bit the less consistent options there. Potentially given more responsibility might be a risk they don't want to take. Yeah, I would have liked, you know, I think the Gwen leaves maybe the door open for like a more utilitous AD carry for Spark. We know that he's happy to play things like Ashe in the past. It's obviously not very high prior right now, but you would at least have enough damage elsewhere. So we've gone through all of this, and Yunara has been completely untouched, and the only AD carry that has been touched, in fact, is Varus taken away. So though it's wide open for Spark and Rhythm, who do look like the most consistent win-con players kind of for both teams right now, have both been untouched, more or less untouched in the ban phase, which is interesting.
I think it could be... it might be a Sivir last pick, actually, for Broad. Yeah. Like, the only real issue here is getting Porp into the fight properly. And Sivir kind of... she's fine if you're hitting the Scion or the Trundle.
Yeah,
like, you can kite them pretty effectively, and it bounces through, yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't really mind that.
That's kind of a dream pick, actually, because it locks down the late game. You've already got a Syndra, which is strong there, right? But against the Scion, like, you know, you want something that can chew through it. So the Sivir locks down the late game AD damage. It does, as you say, help Porp get in range. It's potentially got safety enough on its own. So, yeah, I think the Sivir looks kind of like a lit pick right here. Now, if Good Chi pick it, we'll have to wonder about that. But we've had equally kind of no information from them. They've gone for the Nico, presumably for Chompy. Now, SAM, what are we pairing with this? Like, what's the choice here for Rhythm to round out the comp?
I'm still seeing potential in some form of Siege, so maybe if Good Chi wants to pick up something like the Ashe that can also translate later into a hyper carry, it could be good. There's also just a lot of just different hyper carries that you can put next to a Nico. It's just Devourers that's been gone, that's just mostly been paired with it. I'm still just also wondering about, like, will the Sivir actually be locked here by Zeta? For Spark in this final part, just with the fact that yes, Sivir is some nice late game champion to make sure that you have your damage over there, but I also just see a lot of pickoff on the other side that doesn't necessarily get blocked by a spell shield.
Yeah.
So getting yourself into a fight positioning well, I don't really feel like Sivir would fit in that picture right now for Blood and Friends.
The Nautilus is kind of a weird Sivir pairing. It's not really one you normally see, with that maybe we'll just speak to the issue of picking it so early. Now they've gone for the Kai'Sa instead. with Rhythm taking the Jhin. So there's not that much tankiness on Broad, so the Jhin certainly is going to have value even later on. But Rory, with the choice of the Kai'Sa instead, certainly it's shorter range, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Once you're actually deep in the fight, but it's still kind of a tank killer if you go in the right build.
Oh, absolutely. Like, Kai'Sa can basically shred anyone with her current attack speed build. But the issue is, look, I get it. Kai'Sa Nautilus is a really good pairing. Jin's immobile, so I understand that. Kai'Sa kind of gets smacked around by Neeko in lane. So Rhythm can really consistently get a lead, or should get a lead, in this lane. And it's fine, right? You can always go in on someone who's depth charged. The issue is how's Zeta out when his flash is down, really getting able to depth charge anyone important.
Yeah, who's he getting in range of? Victor?
Yeah.
Jhin? Surely not. Surely we should not be in range of these people. So, all right, now I'll need to do this on behalf of Bloxer, our glorious colorcaster today, is to ask, has good Chi entered the draft, fellas? Because this is Bloxer's biggest contention with Chi, is that they draft themselves into a hole and make the games harder for themselves than they need to be. SAM, do you believe good Chi has entered the draft, or do you think this is playable?
I actually feel like it's playable, even though it will be a difficult game for an AD carry perspective for Rhythm. Like, he's going to be to fill in a more utility role and not necessarily a carry role. But it does feel like it is playable, the way that like the damage is split and you have like some nice engage, disengage. Your picking tool isn't necessarily something that is used and then that's it. You can't do anything else anymore. So I think it's fine for Gucci.
Yeah, Rory, are you in agreement? Do you think we're as the good Chi predictor as well, kind of invested in them not entering the draft? Are we happy with this one?
So I'm not a huge Victor Blind fan, to be honest, but it's kind of worked out the way Broad have picked, and they managed to get themselves a really solid winning early bot lane.
Yeah.
And so I'm really happy, to be honest. They rounded out their comp nicely. Where I feel like if Broad maybe dropped the Braum ban and banned Neeko instead, good Chi would really be lacking damage and meaningful teamfight tools.
Sure. Well, that seems like a positive report card. We shall see how game one pans out. Let's send it over to our casters for the day, Melee and Bloxer. And Bloxer, why don't you tell us? Do you think good Chi into the draft, or have they decided to turn it around just in time for you? Let's talk.
Let's talk, Bloxer. You tell them. Oh, you can't see my arrow. Hang on. Gotta go down a little bit. I have my arrow on. Let's go. Okay. Yeah. No. You talk. You talk.
I'm happy. You know what? I've been much angrier at good Chi drafts in the past, and this one, I think it works pretty well for itself. We were chatting a little bit in the green room. There's maybe a little bit of a worry with this good Chi draft very much wanting to play front to back, and what Broad and Friends have for themselves does not want to play front to back. They want to mix things up. You want to have a couple different people straight into the backline. Specifically, we're expecting Akers to go flying into the backline. Porp as well should be in the backline too, and that can make it hard for a Victor and a Jhin to try to play this one out. But overall, I think this is very much playable from good Chi.
I definitely agree. I know they've talked a little bit about how Kai'Sa's current build is in a position where you can have enough damage to kill off a Sion. However, just from an ADC's perspective, it can feel very, very useless.
Yeah.
You know, especially versus Sion. I think Kai'Sa is one of the cases where it's actually relatively fine. But I always, when I see a Sion from an ADC perspective, I'm always kind of like, okay, wait, what do I have to do to set myself up for success later on, because there will be a point in which I have to be the person dishing out the damage. You do have some nice tools with the Syndra here as well, and I do agree that the Aurora is a nice pick. I've recently grown to love Aurora, especially the combination with the Wukong works very nicely for me. Just the combination of Cyclone and Between Worlds is usually very, very beautiful. And on the other hand, I think you have some nice scaling at your hands with the Victor coming through as well. I think there's a lot of responsibility on the Neeko, because Neeko is kind of your one primary engage tool, I would say. You do have options with both the Pillar and the Ultimate coming through from Sion, but I think the biggest on-the-nose type of engage that you have has to be the Neeko here. So I'm a little worried if they can make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting bit of, playing chicken between these two teams, where you've mitigated a lot of the Trundle's biggest strength, which is taking a tank, stealing everything with the Subjugate, and now you're the tank and they're useless. There's not really a tank on Broad and Friends that you're going to be stealing things away. If you're taking away from the Nautilus, I think that's fine. Broad and Friends aren't going to be angry. Other than that, maybe the Wukong, who will have some resistances built into the kit, but probably going to have that sundered, so is more going to be looking for the healing as that level of survivability. But then again, not having a tank makes the Jhin that much more important right here for Gucci. Jins hate getting their way through tanks, and you now just have a bunch of squishies to be trying to hit. So it's a little bit of swings and roundabout between these two teams. Still, it should be a very exciting matchup.
Well, let's see how it's going to go as we're going into our first match of the day. And I'm going to be honest. I predicted 2-1 for Broad.
Yep.
So Gucci
So
definitely, they definitely have to show me that they can make it work. First hook, of course, not quite landing here.
Nope.
But also no sums used, so I think that's fine.
Yeah, a little bit of that is that I did spend a little bit of time this weekend hanging out with some of the Broad lot and the nice people, and maybe that has, pushed me a little bit more towards them playing well, because Gucci, boy, they really have improved their roster. The desk were talking about it a lot. Bringing in Rhythm has changed things up for them a lot. Having Forshaw here properly, full-time for them during the playoffs as well, is going to mean a lot to them. And right here on the Jhin should be a really interesting time for him, because I've been a little bit suspicious of the Jhin. It does really struggle into tankier compositions, which obviously this isn't, but it's also very immobile, something you were talking about earlier, and has a lot of problems with getting away from champions that want to dive into the backline, like Broad have. For the minute, during this early laning phase, not expecting too much explosivity level 1, but I think once we get that level 2, level 3 in, these teams could start trying to fight each other.
Well, let's see how that's gonna go. First things we see is that both junglers are starting towards their top side, roaming towards bot lane, which could mean that that is a little bit where the attention will be going. I do think Akkers would enjoy some, well, help is the wrong word, but I think Akkers, if you manage to get some kills into the Aurora, would be able to profit off that massively.
Yes.
But at the same time, I would also understand how you want to work into Zeta and Spark. And on the other hand, I think Jhin is definitely going to need a little bit of, starting fuel.
Yeah, exactly. I think in this situation, right, yes, you would love to get a couple of kills into the Aurora early, but Aurora into Sion is a very chill matchup during the early levels. You've got that range versus melee. You should be able to, do exactly this. I mean, Akkers might get the kill here. Okay, Loopy gonna get up to that level 3, which will save him still. He is so low right now.
That was a little closer than necessary. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. This is why you don't need to path towards the top lane early on in this matchup. I think once you get closer to the level 6, once there's a little bit of extra tankiness onto Loopy, that's where, as Porp, you can start looking towards the top lane, potentially even go for some sort of dive here onto the Sion. Diving a Sion obviously is always a little bit risky, but with quite mobile champions between the Aurora and the Wukong, you can definitely make it work, and so far, it doesn't even look like Akkers is particularly going to need that help.
Yeah. I think he should be fine for the moment. Another pick I definitely feel like is going to have impact later on, or that's what I would expect, is QQR with the Syndra, with the Unleashed power. I think that's also one of the more important tools when it comes to dealing with Lupien for sure. As we see the next two coming through on the spot lane. Hits relatively well. They have to be a little bit careful, but Rhythm is able to trade something back here. That actually puts him in a decent position. Now there is something happening in the tri-bush, and we can see for sure moving in a little bit. Spark has dropped relatively low. Does have both summoners available though.
Do they want this dive? I mean, this is a very risky dive. Anytime there's a Nautilus around, Flash and Cleanse still available for Spark.
Let's see, they're looking for a pillar comes through. Spark flashes forward. For sure ends up not getting the kill. It's going over to Rhythm. That's the first blood, but the Ignite hits. He's going to step forward. Maybe Senta can actually try and trade something back, but For sure makes it out just with a little bit of life left. And that's more than enough if you ask me, because he's still very much alive and well. But
no,
wow.
Spark. I don't think Spark had fully realized that Forshaw was there, because he flashes directly into the waiting jaws of the Trundle, and that is going to spell his demise. Doesn't use that cleanse, so you do still have that available if those Tangle Barbs come through for another engage later on from Gucci, but that's the early kill going straight over into Rhythm, and we wanted to see him getting ahead. We wanted to see him with that initial couple of kills, a little bit of an extra boost into this game, and so far, so good.
Yeah, definitely. For a second there, I was like, oh no, he's, playing it proactively. He's flashing forward. He wants to look for the fight. But yeah, your explanation makes a lot more sense than mine.
I think he just didn't know.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Hey, you've got to be sneaky at some point, and I really do like that bit of pathing right there for sure. I think something Gucci haven't really had was a little bit of extra creativity. I think they've been really good on a lot of their macro, but it hasn't exactly been exciting macro. It hasn't been different. That is a nice little bit of pathing, a well-executed dive, getting that wave under really well. And now, okay, there's the cleanse from Sparks to get himself away. Uh-oh.
Root's coming through as well. He's stepping further forward. The spark is dropping really low as Yoshi picks up the next kill. Rhythm definitely in a good mood today. He picks up the first 3 kills. That's the feat of warfare secured. And I mean, I have worries when I look at Jhin because I'm like, he's immobile, he's slow, he doesn't know how to count further than to 4, which I think, is a little concerning, but man, Rhythm is doing a great job here.
Yeah, he's slow, but he's 3-0. Exactly what you're going to want for your Jhin early on. And I gotta be honest, this has been really nice to see. Those Tangle Barbs coming through every single time, incredibly accurate. That flash pillar as well from Forshaw that just allows that extra 4th shot to come on through from Rhythm, get him another one of the kills. This early game has worked out perfectly for Gucci, and now it's very much going to be the onus on Brod to get themselves back into this game, find a way to shut down Rhythm. He's got a 200 gold shutdown right on top of his head, so picking up that kill would go a long way towards making things a bit better. Porp is also going to be able to grab himself this early Crowd Drake as well. It's pretty nice Drake actually for the team composition they have, where mobility is going to be incredibly important, but we need to see more. Right now, this has been a pretty quiet early game for Brod's jungler. He needs to get involved.
I'm trying to think of really smart things to make the connection between his gamertag, Rhythm's gamertag being Yoshisagi, and Blue Lock, and how he's like the Demon King of Blue Lock, and this is the Demon King of Gucci. I don't know, but I'm just gonna stop for now. That's an anime thing.
Yo,
you got
it's
it.
It's an anime thing. That's crazy.
It's an anime thing.
Oh, okay. Gonna get that Arcane Storm down in the mid lane. Not really gonna do too much there. Hang on, we've got some interesting pathing.
Yeah, there was not a lot of vision as Pop's now stepping in. That Cyclone is doing a decent amount of work. He flashed forward, played it aggressively, but now with the clone, they're actually able to save themselves quite well. Maybe top lane though, another play for Forshaw. He puts out the pillar. Akkers should be fine, does still have the flash available, is also relatively mobile on this Aurora pick. Worst case, you pick the ultimate and should be fine, as we can now see more action towards the bot side. Zeta taking a little bit of damage, but overall, they seem to be all right.
Yeah.
But you definitely have to respect this Jhin. This route is not going to go through, but here comes the curtain call. Maybe they can find some damage onto Zeta here, but he's playing with the fancy feet. I just wanted to say he's playing with the fancy feet, and they're stepping even further forward now with the pop blossom coming through as well. Root comes through, double kill for Rhythm. 5-0 on this Jhin, all 5 kills of the game on the AD carry of Gucci, and they definitely did not come to play today. They want to take this one home.
Yeah, they're going to be mad about getting knocked down to the bottom of the bracket right here. Absolutely looking to take that out on Brod. And hey, if people didn't know, if you've not been around, this is some of your first times watching, Rhythm, he's kind of good. He's kind of good at video game. The thing is though,
a good player.
Zeta was not expecting that much damage, right? That is a serrated Dirk and a pair of Swifties right there on the Jhin, and he's taking you out with that much health left. But the 4th shot is really going to hurt right here, and they can just keep this one up. QQR is now under a bit of threat, should be able to walk away, does have Zeta in the area. Man, every time Brod have tried to do something, it has immediately gotten shut down. Specifically, that bot lane gank that Porp tried, it was really good pathing and positioning out of him, and it would have been a kill if Spark had ticked over to that level 6. If you've got yourself that ulti, you're able to jump on forwards, make use of that Cyclone, and get yourself that kill pretty easily. You know, we saw how low Rhythm got. Because they're not able to do that, it also pulls Brod a little bit too far forwards in their lane, that gets the wave pushing, and it allows that little bit of return fire to come on through from Gucci, and they pick themselves up 2 kills out of it. This is Gucci firing on all cylinders.
I think the biggest issue that you will have at some point is just the item disadvantage, right? Because if we only look at the CS, yes, Spark is doing a decent job. He's even when it comes to CS, but these 5 kills are so much gold in the bag of Rhythm, and there will be a point at which Spark will have to respect that, at least for the time being, and they will have to wait for these item spikes to hit in order to be able to even fight in any shape or form.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm a little worried about, because I think Kai'Sa has some decent scaling, and I know that her item spikes are also relatively nice. But if you fall that far behind early on, how much time do you actually have to reach these spikes? Maybe now Pop can look for something on this mid lane here. Is there stepping a little bit further forward? Scatter doesn't connect. Very nice flash, but now he's still in danger. Has to be very
Wait,
careful.
no.
Power comes through, but he manages to stay alive. He pulls out the Arcane Storm, and the Arcane Storm is enough to not only keep him alive, but also force Brod and friends back underneath their own turret. Now we get another bot lane play, another Pop Blossom coming through. Yes, you're tanking a lot of damage here, and that ends up with Spark actually taking the kill. But it's still a trade.
Oh,
now with the
teleport in,
TPs
okay.
coming through, they definitely want to overload in this river right now. Between worlds being used, but their flashes are immediately being pulled here as well as they're stepping further forward. Scatter connects onto 2 people, that's really important for sure. Dropping extremely low, QQR with the kill. But it is again Rhythm that makes it out alive.
Yeah,
Jesus
needed that
Christ.
shutdown. It has been an incredibly aggressive early game so far. We are seeing these teams flinging everything at each other. Obviously, Rhythm has been the main beneficiary of all of this play, but it is good to see that Brod and friends are still making things happen and do manage to get themselves a couple of key kills back onto their carries. Both Spark and QQR are able to grab themselves a little bit of extra gold right here. Just try to set them back onto the correct path. Spark being very aggressive right now, as he should, right? He's only faced with a support at the moment. Still, look at that. I mean, you're just getting this wave held in your face by a Nico.
It's crazy. It's
Chompy don't
insane.
care. Chompy is chilling here on the
Chompy's
Nico.
vibing.
He does a lot of damage too, right? He does a surprising amount considering that he's a support. It's one of the best things about the Nico. You can still be pumping out that damage, give yourself so much extra CC for your team as well. Now, second Drake on the board. It is going to be Gucci favoured. I don't really know if you've got any way of getting in onto this one and stopping it. Porp, more interested in potentially making a play happen top lane. Kind of the only lane that's been pretty quiet so far.
Yeah, I mean, at least if we look at the CS, Akers has been able to create a little bit of an advantage there.
Yep.
Was to be expected just because of the tiny bit more range that he can play around, possibly. As we can see, Loopy and Pop kind of, you know.
Porp, you don't win that. No.
Yeah, I was wondering how far he was willing to go, but I
Yeah,
think
you're-
that's a better choice.
You're thinking your Aurora's probably going to come over if things get too dicey, but right now...
Akers wanted to farm. He was like, no, I'm gonna get this plating, bro.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
chill.
Still, it works out. They're able to steal away a couple of camps. It looks like we're going to get a take number 3 potentially down onto the bottom lane. The first dive worked really well. The second dive went a little bit less well. Spark is going to take a Tangle Barbs to the face, should be able to keep this one up, and has also critically completed that first item.
Yeah.
Yes, Rhythm was able to get the first 5 kills of the game and does have that collector in inventory, but actually isn't really ahead in terms of items, only is up with those boots. Spark is still sat on his upgraded boots, but hasn't got the tier 2s yet, and has got himself that Kraken, so he's still going to be able to pump out the damage. Now with that second reset coming on through, you're beginning to see that gap form. Still, it's not as much as you would have expected considering how well the early game went for Gucci.
Yeah, I agree. I do really like the Kraken Slayer for Spark, though. Because it's a little bit of an investment into the later stages of the game already.
Yeah.
Just knowing who you're playing into and that you will need that little bit of an edge. As we're now looking at the lane swap coming through, we're getting the Pop Blossom again. Roots coming through as well. Another
CC.
root coming through from Rhythm. Not much you can do. Between worlds being used as an escape tool here. Ekers has to be careful. Doesn't have the flash. Will end up at least trying to outdance them a little bit, but in the end it's the kill. The good news is the kill is going over to Chompy. The bad news is it's still a kill for Gucci, and they are still very much ahead, and this puts them, of course, in a nice position to go towards topside camps now as well, if that's the goal that they are looking for, as we can see some more action coming through.
Okay,
a bunch
there's
of
the shutdown.
clones are being used. That looks very, very nice here on the
Nice.
side. Pop picks up the kill against For Sure, and in the pit it's going into round number 2. Yes, you get another kill onto the victor here, but everyone has to
Burn.
be on the run just a little bit. Nico ends up going down, Spark with important gold being funneled into him, and now they are looking for more in this river. Down goes the victor, and that was very, very important for quick and really, really financially, resourceful kills
Yes,
for
absolutely.
the side of Broad here.
Massively financially beneficiary right here for Brod. Spark gonna pick himself up a bunch of kills. Now he's sat at 4 and 3. That's gonna go a hell of a long way towards making up for all of the early issues he had, including that shutdown right there onto Rhythm. And from Gucci, this is exactly what the desk were highlighting for us, right? They sometimes just make decisions where you're sat scratching your head, you're very confused. Why on earth were you doing that? And why on earth were they doing that? They just left Rhythm out to dry in that situation, and the second that the Jin's gone, that's where all of your gold is. If you look across the board in terms of these items, nobody else is down in items. It was only the bottom lane where you had yourself a significant advantage, and that's now gone away. You've got those 2 items completed here onto Spark. He's now in a good spot. You can see Aka's now going to pick himself up a tower as well, and where it was a 1,000 gold lead for Gucci, it swung all the way into Brod and Friends' favour.
And I gotta wonder a little bit, was it Gucci getting cocky already? Did they overstep? Did they overstay their welcome? Or was it actually Broad finally hitting the item spikes that they needed? The question will have to wait for another second, as Pop could be picked up here. The roots are coming through. He's just not allowed to move for 5 billion years, actually.
Yeah.
That's an important
it's
6 kill to the
miserable.
Jin. Yeah.
The second that you get hit by a Tangle Bobs, that Deadly Flourish comes out immediately. If there's a Victor around, you're going to end up stunned up within that cage as well, and there's kind of nothing you can do. It makes it really hard to play out these individual little pick fights. The thing is, in these straight-up 5v5s, Brod and Friends are not a composition that are going to run out of damage, and I think that's what we were seeing. All of a sudden, Brod had all of their people available, were able to go in. Rift Tower's going to go down.
Ooh, the roots are coming through. Between Worlds also being used very nicely, and a chance to kind of disrupt that curtain call. The Jin drops extremely low, has to step back a little bit. Now they're looking to do more on this mid lane, though. Arcane Storm coming through as well. And finally, they are able to pick up another kill here. But will it be enough, as the Arcane Storm is still doing some work? Spark ends up going down. That's no AD carry on the side of Brod and Friends. It's a double kill for the victor. And in the end, it's also that mid lane tier 1 turret.
Wow.
Jesus
Okay.
Christ.
Yeah,
It's
this
way
game's
more
wild.
explosive than I expected this to be, honestly.
These teams, they are not messing around. They really want to win this one. We were talking, obviously, during the pre-game about how important this is for both of these teams. For Brod and Friends, RPS, their main goal, getting that promotion potentially into the NLC, rests on them winning a single game here in the playoffs. Well, right now in this one, they've got themselves back down again. The goal just keeps swinging back and forth. A proper LPL goal graph we're going to have at the end. And it's just Porp was picked off before the play happens, and so you're missing out on a ton of your engage and your CC with the Wukong.
Zeta's getting rooted again, tries to hook himself to safety. It's just enough with the scatter coming through. They still have to be a little bit careful. The next knock-up hits onto Zeta, hooks himself underneath the turret. Pop now a little disconnected from the rest of the team as Spark is being zoned away here. Scatter connects onto several people, but there's just no follow-up damage to pillars coming through. Akers has to step to the side, but they end up actually staying alive. And here is the dragon in the eye of Brod and Friends, who have found a way to, force Gucci back far enough
vision.
to actually be able to pick up this Drake.
This is lovely from Brod and Friends. This is something I feel like we did not get to see from them during the regular season. They were not able to play out these fights from behind. When they got ahead, they could keep it ongoing, but actually pulling themselves back into games wasn't really within their wheelhouse. Well, so far, they've been able to drag themselves back from a massive deficit during the early game, and it's not clean, but so far, massive respect onto Aka's name. He was the only one that wasn't really getting dragged down into the mud early on, and he is stepping up so aggressively in a lot of these fights, positioning himself right at the very edge of danger, but every single time he's just throwing himself out Q after Q after Q, and he does so much damage already with only the Liandry's in inventory.
Next Pop Blossom coming through straight away.
Man.
That's just so much damage. The damage is so massive.
Yep.
I mean, QQR just popped like a bubble.
Yeah.
He's just gone.
He is evaporated off of the map right there. And this is the problem that Broad are running into. They're just constantly getting picked off. Their squishy, immobile members, especially the Syndra, is just going to keep having this happen again and again. And it is nice to see Good Chi just continuing to be proactive. If the game were to end right now, I gotta be honest, in terms of player of the game, it would be Chompy for me. He has been so aggressive right here on this Neeko, is just constantly finding himself pop blossoms, the tangle bombs are landing every single time, and he's just so annoying across the entire map, disrupting all of the plans, all of the just simple things like, I want to catch this wave that Bron and friends are trying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's crazy that even though this game is so action-packed, I might not get to speak about it. Oh, he hits onto the clone, though. Loopy, my man, that was the clone. That was not your target. Scatter connects onto several people. The lasers are hitting the tri-bush. I think Broad are actually...
Do they actually want to start this Atakan? This is not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, the Atakan throw angle is real for almost every team as the scatter comes through, hits onto the Neeko. So Chompy has to be a little bit careful. They're now splitting up. Several members looking to take this turret, with the Void Grubs also doing a massive amount of work. That's another kill going over to Chompy with the Pop Blossom underneath the turret. Pillar comes through as well. Nice flash to dodge the fourth shot here of the ultimate. And now they might actually be in a position to move towards this Atakan because they are at a numbers advantage. But is that enough?
It should be, because Akaz has decided not to go play for this team fight, has just headed towards the mid lane, is going to be able to pick himself up that tower. And despite the fact that, Atakan throws are really something we've been plagued with throughout the entirety of this year in pretty much every single region, Good Chi, they're going to make it work. They're able to make their macro happen. And it's, again, just Chompy stepping up, taking up a bunch of space, and then you get to sit so far back here as Rhythm, just pop that ulti down, and there's so very little you can do. Porp blowing that flash in that team fight could be really critical for the next one. He's now going to find it much harder to get into the backline and actually try to get on top of Rhythm and grab them that critical kill.
Quick moment to take a breath. What I wanted to mention was that the gold lead is actually not that crazy considering the craziness of the game. A minute ago it was really just 1k, now it's roughly 1.5. But it is action-packed. I think if we look at the turret situation, I mean, if we're right now looking at the vision situation, which is not great, but also not super bad here for Broad towards all the way towards the river. It looks relatively fine.
Yeah. They've been able to keep themselves pretty good in terms of the vision war, and it's allowing them to step up for a couple of these fights. Oh boy!
Blossom hits onto several members. That's just beautiful. Sion ultimate hits right away. That's a kill for Loopy with the pillar coming through. It's the double. Make that more. Oh my god, that was just a beautiful combination of ultimates being used in that scenario.
Gorgeous, and this is part of why I didn't think this was a bad draft out of Good Chi, why I thought it was playable. You've got yourself a little bit of a wombo combo. It's not the same as you usually think of, the MF and the Orianna. That hits all in one go, but if you hit that first little bit of CC, especially with Pop Blossom being quite easy to land onto a couple members, that was gorgeous from Chompy to land it onto everyone. You can follow it up very effectively, and it really has only been Akaz able to absorb gold across the rest of the map. Now he's potentially under a lot of threat. I don't know, you want to take this one. Yeah, he's a bit caught here.
Oh, he might be able to run away as Akaz had to use the ultimate to escape, and we're now seeing the curtain call coming through again. First shot doesn't hit, but maybe they are now in a good position as the root comes through.
Okay.
Rod and friends actually managed to stay alive. Did a decent job at blocking those ultimate shots here, but that's an important ultimate gone already on the side of Good Chi as we're seeing some action happening. Dragon has spawned, and it looks as if Broad are actually looking towards it. It would be soul point for them if they were able to pick it up. Pop is doing it, and the rest of the team is doing a decent job. That's some decent damage coming out. The Pop Blossom not quite doing the work as Spark picks up the kill, and now they're looking to step further forward. Pop still on the side, working on this Jagan, trying to secure that soul point as they're now looking to engage onto the Sion. Sion hits the ultimate, finds the kill against the Nautilus, and now there's the Arcane Storm, and it's growing bigger and bigger and bigger, but that's another shutdown in the back of Spark. Pop still working on that Dragon that just doesn't want to go down, but finally they manage to pick that one up, and that puts them at soul point. And Broad are doing a good job at fighting back, because if you look at the gold right now, it's dead even almost.
As you said, just as that fight kicked off, Rhythm uses a key ulti beforehand, and you are now missing a key bit of your composition. There was no point at which Rhythm was actually able to step up far enough to land himself any normal auto attacks. He was really only able to play into that fight with as many of those deadly flourishes as he could manage. If he had the ulti to lay down on top of it with that curtain call, you're in a much better spot in that team fight. I would also like to say, QQR might be the best Syndra that we've got in the entirety of the Four Nations. He is an absolute sniper with those Scatter the Weaks, is landing them almost every single time, and it's forcing Gucci to be so respectful in situations in which you would usually think they're winning.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're looking at another Pop Blossom coming through, now the damage output is there again. And that's another big kill into the bags of the Victor here. Jesus. It's so back and forth. I hardly know what to believe. I hardly know who has the upper hand. Eckers does have the TP, channels it right away.
Are they starting
because we
Baron?
can see. I mean, they're at least trying
They're looking
to
at
bait that a little bit, right? Like they're trying to bait Rod to commit a little bit here. Bob had to use the clone in order to make it out, but they're not in a great position here. The root comes through, and he's immediately faced with having to use his ultimate to escape, but he's still stuck within. That curtain call manages to stay alive, but in the end, he ends up going down. Now Akers off to the side, has already used his ultimate, doesn't have the flash available, is going to get chased through the jungle here a little bit. Maybe with the plans, he can try to find some time to delay it, but it's just not quite going to be enough.
Pull them down as far away from the Baron as possible. Your friends are all going and getting themselves a little bit of extra push onto the mid wave. This is exactly right from Akers in a bad situation, and it should at least prevent this Baron from going down, despite the fact that Broad lose 2, including their jungler.
It's such a close call. You mentioned it earlier, whenever one team in the earlier scenario, whenever Broad tried to find a play, it was actually Gucci coming out on top of it. And now for a long time it felt more even, but with this, Gucci have put themselves in a great position to actually move towards this Baron. They had to give up a little bit down towards the bot side with giving up those Drakes, but it looks as if Broad and friends are still looking to contest this here a little bit.
Pop has Smite. You know, there's always the angle for a steal right here with the Wukong.
Spark also equipped with the ultimate, with the cleanse, with the flash, is everything up. Definitely has some damage to get, but he's being spotted here, so finds a little bit of a tricky position. We're still waiting. Will Pop actually make it through as they're stepping over the wall with the Pop Blossom? The Baron goes down for the blue side here, and that's another quick kill for the Nico, for Chompy, and they're now looking to go for even more with Eckers picking up the kill on the side. So Nico is down, but that engage tool has already been used. So Zeta now has to be careful. Maybe he can find a hook. He finds the hook, but it's only against the Sion. Do they have enough damage to actually kill him out without Spark being alive? They're trying for sure, but is it going to be enough? Pop is off to the side. He's ignited. They're split up massively as the Arcane Storm is now coming through. Here comes another root. It's a double kill already for Rhythm, and they're looking for a little bit more. The curtain call does not quite hit, and Akers and QQR are running for the hills and actually managed to make it out alive. But what a fight again from Gucci, who just seemed to have a little more juice in the bag.
And I really like that right there from Chompy. Flashing over the wall into the Pop Blossom, ensuring that Pop can't get over the wall, stop it from being a 50-50. And in the end, he's going to be the only one that goes down. That's 4 Baron buffs available to Gucci on all of their key carries. And they've got themselves a Sion, they've got themselves a Trundle. These champions can rip through towers if you've got the chance. This is the moment here for Gucci to really separate themselves out from Broad and get themselves into a lead they can comfortably hold.
And it's getting so hard for Broad to find ways to fight back, because now with the Baron buff and the 3 Void Grubs, these turrets are going to melt. Mid lane, of course, already extremely demolished as Zeta goes down once more. Not really much you can do, and they are now looking to split up, move to separate lanes, and try to push in this little 4-in-1 scenario. But we can see Rhythm is moving towards that mid lane, so he definitely wants to have some impact there. As we can see, Akers trying to outplay Loopy here a little bit with the ultimate. It's looking good. Spark finds the kill. Super important. But how much do you lose across the map? Because that
Akers
top lane
dies.
tier 2 is going down. And now the question is there anything else that Gucci can get out of this, because there was a lot of action happening towards the top side. You mentioned it, Akers is down as well, and they still have the Void Grubs and they still have the Baron buff, and that wave is huge, so it will at least be this one inhibitor. Now they can look to maybe move it towards mid lane or even pick up that Drake, because right now, Broad are not in the ideal position to contest this.
No.
Maybe, just maybe, this is the point where Gucci can find something back on this bot side, in this bot side jungle.
Akers is 90% of the damage right now for Broad and Friends. Has just completed himself that death cap as well. And with him dead, there's really no way you can contest. I think this is the right decision out of Broad and Friends. Just push these waves through, delay them being able to push into your base. But it feels like it's going to take a bit of a miracle at this point for Gucci to lose this one, and for Broad and Friends to be able to claw their way back.
It's been such a tense game.
Yeah.
From the early stages on. You know, these first 3 kills going over to Rhythm right away. Securing that feat of warfare.
Yeah. And he's still down in items. Like, I don't understand what's happened with that. Akers is also going to get jumped. The Between Worlds should get him away in this situation, or very annoying to get on top of. But that Between Worlds, that's a big thing to have missed out on at this point, right when you're about to look for a potential team fight. Yeah, Broad and Friends, they're just having to use so many of these key tools defensively.
But you did also use Loopy's ultimate on the other hand, which of course doesn't have the craziest cooldown, but also the curtain call being gone. Yes, you find a little bit of a pop blossom, but look at the damage coming through right now from Spark. Spark is doing an insane amount of work, but is it actually enough? Zeta ends up going down. Yes, Spark finds the kill against Nico on the side, and Loopy also goes down. They're looking forward. Spark kept his ultimate alive for long enough to now be straight inside of that backline, and he picks up the quadra kill. That is insane. What a shutdown. What an ace! And they are back right here, right now. Broad and Friends have waited for the right time to maybe even look for the finish here.
I mean, it's 20 seconds now until you're going to have Chompy back up and available. 30 seconds until you've got any of the main carries that can stop this push from coming on through. They don't take these towers that fast, but I think they might just about have enough time. Have Gucci really managed to actually throw this game away?
It's looking like it. Chompy back up, but a few more seconds left on these main carries. He pulls out the Pop Blossom, but Pop has to use the clone, manages to dodge it. Between Worlds also being used, and that's it. That's the game. Broad and Friends fight back and actually take over a game that looked lost from minute 1.
What? I mean, hey, are you not entertained? This is what we wanted here on a Monday evening, right? We just got off of a plane yesterday, we're all tired, and this game has done everything I wanted to wake me back up. Broad and Friends snatch a game from the jaws of defeat right there. I mean, holy moly. Yes, they were constantly fighting back, and I'm very impressed with the way that Broad were able to play that one, but make no mistake, that is a throw right there from Gucci. They had that game fully in their grasp.
Yeah, I honestly, I do feel a little bad for them. Especially if you look at what they have been putting in, you know, work-wise. There were so many important kills, so many, no, that's the right one. So many shutdowns on all of these individual members, and it really only took one team fight for them to give it all away. And I think for me, the deciding factor was that Spark kept his ultimate so long that when the frontline was already mostly dead, he still had ultimate to jump onto the Victor, jump onto the Jhin, which was our main issue in the beginning. We were wondering, like, how would you ever reach that backline? That's how. Yeah. And I hear there are 3 people who probably also have a lot to say about this, because I would love to hear how our desk untangles what just happened in that game, because it was a lot.
Yes, all according to plan over in the Broad camp. Never in doubt. Very simple to predict. Obvious outcome. Am I right, SIM? Am I right, SIM?
I mean, 2-0 Blood, right? Like, what else can I say? No one could have seen. Yeah.
Come on now.
This was a game with an ending that a lot of people will be scratching their heads off, like, what actually happened, what went down, because in the green room we were talking like, okay, we have this clip and we can build this narrative. It all falls flat now. It is just going to be how this Did Broad
Yes.
do this, and how did it come to it?
Yeah. Now we know that someone probably scratching their head more than anyone is probably Rory B on the other side of this analyst desk, guys. So while let's take a look at our. Yeah, actually, you don't want to see Rob right now. Rob is not fit for broadcast right now. But
Rob's
let's.
left his house. He needed
Yeah.
a walk. He is fully launched Rob out right
Yeah,
now.
he is on the road.
actual
Like,
about.
let's take a look at this first replay, Rory, because this game started
would
pretty
love to.
dang well for Chi.
Yeah, it started great. They got a dive off onto Spark, then they managed to utilize their XP advantage and absolutely one-tap Zeta here. That's like, I don't know, 600 damage ult at that point in the game because of the execute. Nico levels up, and it's great. You have a Jhin who is, what, 4-0 at this
I
point
think
in the game?
3-0 out of lane
3-0,
with
4-0.
no contest. Yeah.
Wild! And then they
Yeah.
did their patented one little throw to Broad. And that was
Yeah.
around the dragon, and Broad got the dragon, and I was like, okay, they got
just
it out
for
their
the
systems.
culture,
It's
little
fine.
throw. Yeah.
They said we need to at least sneak one in, lads, for the viewer numbers. I don't know what the thought was there, but
Yeah.
then they were such a dominant position. They had Baron, they had a massive lead on their mid laner, and then they just entered a fight one by one
Yeah. So
in the
let's-
river
we'll,
for no reason.
We'll get to that. Don't worry, guys. We'll get to that. But we have to give some flowers first, SAM, to Chompy's Nico. Because this clip is just... This was like 70% of the game, was this clip.
With this, I think we can establish that Chompy indeed was just the game maker, and with that also breaker for his team, because
Yeah.
every single time that he engaged the fight, we already knew it was going to end in the Gucci victory. And then if you look at the last fight that we saw going in Brod's favor, it was him being the one focused on, being picked off, not being able to engage that fight, and apparently then the entire plan falls flat. And it's Brod and friends that instantly spot the opportunity that even if you lose one Nexus Tower for it, I would just trade one Nexus Tower for enemy Nexus every day of the week. That's something all of you would do, right?
Yeah, seems value. Seems like the art of the deal to me. But it was... Certainly, it just looked like Nico... It seemed like Brod were just not ready for the fact that Nico had Protobelt at 15 minutes. But Rory, we've cycled back to you, mate. And you've already kind of let us know roughly what's going on here. But this
Yeah.
is the last engagement between the two.
So where's your damage? Just wondering. Where's good cheese damage? I
not seeing them.
don't know if they're still on school summer holidays or whatever, uni summer holidays I should probably say. But I'm so confused. Once you see your frontlining just die like this, I don't know why your Jhin and Victor are even committing to the fight at this point. Right?
Yeah.
Because most of the engage tools have already been used on Brod. So if you're Jhin and Victor, just back off it. You can clear that wave. If you need to, you can Jhin ult the wave, right? You can drop a Victor and wait for it to walk into you. You're completely fine. Sure, you lose an in here. But instead, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it
That was
started...
a 0-10 Nautilus.
Yeah, that's a
And it
W,
didn't
bro.
matter.
That's a W Nautilus game. Like,
There were some great engages from Zeta as well. That
Yeah.
did some insane.
We also
nasty
had some
hooks,
pants
so-
engages
yeah,
from
there was some
Zeta.
absolutely
Yeah.
horror show hooks as well. Like, it was a mixed bag from Zeta, we can say, I think. But ultimately,
You take
he
the
walks away with the
50-50.
fatty dub. And no one was any the wiser. So, we saw, like... That game started out as what looked like was going to be a very well-executed, reasoned victory for Chi. That had a couple of cracks here and there, a couple of small missteps, but they were in control. And then, even up to that last fight, they were actually in control of the game. They'd got Barons, they were getting Nexus Towers, as you mentioned. They lose one critical fight, game's over. That's just the way it is, that's League of Legends. So,
And I just want to jump in. If this series devolves into the team in the lead just throws a final fight and they lose their Nexus, I think our casters are going to explode.
yes, Bloxer certainly won't last, won't make
Yeah.
it through the night. And Melee might be holding them together with duct tape by the end of that cast. But for now, let's go to the desk. Let's give everyone a chance to recover emotionally from that one. And we'll be back in just a few minutes with Game 2 of the series. Welcome back, everybody. We are getting mentally prepared for game number 2 of Broad and Friends versus Good Chi. So in terms of, we were just talking about what is it that Good Chi actually, what can Good Chi change for this game upcoming? And the answer, SAM, the only answer I can really think of is like, I don't know, don't mess up. Like, seemed like it was going really great up until the end.
I feel like that's like 80% of it. Like the last 20% of the formula that they maybe could have switched up is maybe a little less burst and more DPS, so that if you fumble a fight, you can still keep up with the enemy. Because now you miss your initial engage, you cannot hit your burst, the enemy out DPSs you, DPS check over, game over. So if we get a regular AD carry like Yunaro, who has been open for the entirety of the draft,
That everyone forgot.
there might be
yeah.
something in the air.
It did seem like in that last fight where Spark gets a quadra kill that he ults into 3 people and out damages all of them at the same time. And it's like, well, is there something any of us could have done about this? But Rory B, how do you feel about this? So for Good Chi, maybe a little bit more DPS, maybe, but largely just probably don't throw the game, lads. For Broad, considering they were able to to burglarize the win in that first game, what can they actually work on to try and avoid such a heart-stopping situation as we get?
Well, if we're talking about legal activities, I'd say that draft was there were some wrong-uns up and down that draft. Some absolute wrong-uns there that we won't see again because brought up blue side.
Yeah.
This time around, so we'll see if
and Fearless as well.
And Fearless, yeah. So we'll see if they just put priority on Spark for first pick. Or it's going to be Spark or QQR, I think, having priority here. I don't think any other player really demands it.
We could see this would probably be a good time for Yunara B1 to drop that. I imagine they could or should maybe ban the Virus as well continually for that as well. Last time they did the Taric, they did the Urgot, and I think it was actually Chi that banned the Varus on that first time, but they have now pivoted to full anti-Port Brigade. No Pantheon, no Xin, and Broad have gone to a B1 for Pop in times past, Rory, but what's the thought?
So the issue with Good Chi putting Trundle as their first pick last game is that it's Fearless, and now they've gone, oh wait, the counter Trundle is out. And we don't have a Poppy prepared, I guess, as an answer.
And they have all of the other jungle premiers.
So now we have to ban Port because we don't have first pick here.
Yeah, so the Akali was the last ban for Broad, taken away again for Kurosh, who was very ahead in the lane. Was the only lane that was actually very individually ahead. But that was what it was. It was the Orianna ban first time around in that first rotation in game 1, but now they've taken it. So SAM, we've got the Orianna locked in. Open. And the Varus was banned away by Chi again, so we still have Yunara up, and we now maybe can get another counter bit for Kurosh.
I was also wondering, like, what are we pairing up with the Orianna right now? Because we did see a Jarvan, I believe, later on banned. Jarvan is now open as well, so now are you forced as Gucci to pick the Jarvan away, or are you just going to give it over to Broad?
Like, go for the classic?
The classic.
Right. Yeah.
But did they practice it? Because that is a combo that you do.
Most teams mess it up. You're not wrong.
Surely, yeah. It is kind of crazy how often you see teams mess it up. And we've skipped ahead in the draft right here. So the Jarvan has been taken away by Chi. An Ezreal early for Rhythm Blind. And Rory, it looks like we might be seeing the Yunara that Broad's like, fine, okay, we've gone through 1.5 draft phases. We'll pick the freaking champion, okay? Like, fine.
So it's I quite like it here. I wouldn't like a Sejuani at this point with pairing with Orianna. That doesn't.
Would
make
you
much
prefer a
sense to me.
Kiana?
So Kiana jungle did get buffed. I wanted to say that Kurosh, if he played Kiana, it would go crazy this game. It's really nice into Orianna, definitely one shot. And if you look at Diamond Plus in the meta right now, Kiana mid has a 57.5% win rate. The buffs are insane on her. She's
not
such a
balanced.
disgusting mid laner.
But that's solo queue and it's not competitive.
It doesn't matter. Most Kiana plays in competitive are exactly the same as solo queue, which is I go to the lane where the squishy person is, I kill them, and then in a team fight I spam grass invisibility the entire time until I find an ult.
Yeah, and given like we'll I assume that we'll have the champs like catch up in a moment, so we'll see if it actually locks the Kiana if there's a swap. But we do have the Yunara locked into the Ezreal. Now I don't know if I've actually seen this matchup before SAM, and we've seen Yunara dismantle Lucian Namis in 2v2s in Chris Broke's hands. So into the Ezreal, and we're assuming like a Karma or maybe like a roamer like Bard or Leona. But how do we feel about this bot lane situation?
I do feel like as an Ezreal, you basically want to accept here that you are the weak side player, that you are the one that's trying to be a neutralizer to the Yunara, and you do have like the extra option that in team fights as well. Yeah. Yunara is of course really susceptible for the fact that your ultimate lasts 15 seconds after activation, so if you can stall a fight that you do not have to deal with the Yunara at that point, it is easy to take the fight afterwards. And well, with Ezreal you can just jump away, take the rest of the team fight off until it's finally over, and then try to take a re-engagement. So I would see it happening, but now when you've also added the Karma to it, you do really want to fight those fights early, and I still feel like Yunara is really difficult to fight into if she can get the DPS off. Now, we did swap to the Poppy, so this does also kind of hilariously remove another answer to all of the jungle bans that are now going to have to make it to game 3 if Gucci can hold it out here to stop Pop just doing what he wants. As we go through the second round of bans, the Akker's Gragas taken away, and then an Ahri removed from Kurosh in the mid lane. So this Poppy choice now, Rory, we could flex this to support. We do see a little bit more, but into Ezreal Karma, doesn't seem
right? I
doesn't
think Poppy
seem
gets
hot.
stomped by Karma.
So I'm assuming we're keeping this for jungle. and we'll see what the Yunara pairing is. There's still like a Braum, perhaps, we've seen before, which is defensive enough, but given that we've got Ezreal Karma, is there actually like a good answer to this, or is it just the least bad option, I suppose?
I actually don't mind Braum. I think Yunara Braum could really do something in this comp, especially when for sure is signaled that you're going for at least something that can play off of a Jarvan. I think it's quite nice. I'm not going to talk about it until it's locked, but we're seeing AP champions get pinched here by Broad and Friends in their second ban phase. I feel like you could really prioritize pinching Loopy instead, because the Gragas ban kind of indicates that he wants to play Jax. So unless Akos has something prepared into the Jax, it would be really interesting to see if you took that away. But Korosh, very threatening player.
Yeah, and Annie, if I'm QQR, I am going. They are going to be perma in my lane. They are going to be really trying to hammer QQR because he is the weaker laner on the side of Broad and Friends. Korosh is maybe the strongest laner on Gucci, and Jarvan Annie is absolutely diabolical for most mid laners to try and deal with. So this is going to be QQR having to settle in for a pretty rough early game. Zeta's gone for a classic Leona, which has come for him, so it's engage. It's not the Braum. It's less able to maybe defensively play into an Ezreal Karma because you have to commit all the way in to try and push them off. But it does at least have a lot of defensive capability to try and wall them out. And we'll see what QQR... Well, I guess we know QQR is on the Orianna already, so we know that he doesn't have a dash, so that's going to be tough. And we're going to see now what the Akker's blind is going to be, and Loopy's been given the blind. So SIM, we do have, I guess, an idea of what the rest of the comp is. There's an Ori, there's tanks on the front line, and a Camille.
Actually, the Camille. So I was thinking, is he going to have to go Camille because you're pairing it with the Orianna, and Leona Orianna isn't that amazing?
Yeah, but this gives it a bit more versatility, but still long reach.
Loopy can just pick Mundo.
Combo.
If Loopy picks Mundo here, it's great.
Or
the Renekton is a massive ego pick.
We can ego it and drop the
massive
Croc.
ego pick into a Poppy.
That has never backfired before, right? Like,
no,
never.
Nah, bro, not in the Four Nations, man. We've never oversold ourselves in the Four Nations.
I think Camille is not a good champion in the meta right now, and I think if Loopy just picks his Mundo that we've seen be successful on him, Camille can't really play into that champion. Instead, it's Renekton
Ego Central.
locked.
Okay, so
yeah, I do understand it though.
I get it. I just don't think people are very good at piloting Renekton. That's my main issue.
I was wondering if we'd get the Akker's Renekton this series, just because he's one of our more experienced players on it, to try and cut through like a defensive Loopy pick. However, that's not the situation we have right here, gents. So, overall, good Chi draft. We have strong range 2v2 bot lane, classic combo. We've got a really strong mid-jungle duo to punish, and then we've got ego top lane. And there's good dive options, there's decent kind of mobility. I suppose the Karma can help everyone get into range in the same way as Sivir can, but SAM, for the kind of cohesion here for good Chi, and with what worked for them last game, I'm worried that we don't have as much agency for Chompy, and we have maybe, there's a big risk in top lane now with this Loopy pick, but what's your vibe on this?
Well, you do of course like switch around the job from Chompy over to Korosh, that he's now going to be the main form of engage with the Annie, who's not necessarily a pick known for dealing a lot of damage, but mostly the disruption, and the moment you get flash, it just tippers onto the enemy team, and hopefully the fight goes better after that. And that's why I'd also understand why you want to go for the Renekton here, because if your top side is going great and your Renekton can actually join a fight, sure, Mundo might neutralize a champion like Camille, but then later on you want to play him on the side lane, so he's not really there joining the team fight, so now you need to play an awkward siege composition with Karma Ezreal, and hopefully after that get an engage with the Annie.
But
so
Camille wants to play side lane generally. Like, normally it's going to be a Camille on the side forcing either an Annie or the top laner to come. So I think if Mundo's just able to hard push the waves, and then Camille's like kind of forced to answer that instead of the other way around.
Whilst yes, we have seen Brother and Friends just team fight whenever they like to, not necessarily playing the macro like that. Like Akkers is more known for that than playing the side lane, and Loopy, I would have liked him more on the side lane.
Yeah, they're both players, top laners, that prefer to group, generally speaking. We've seen it from Loopy before as well, right? Even when it might be preferable for them to be there, the players tend to like to group up. So we'll see, I guess, if one of them's actually going to try and pop a 1-4 on the stage, or if they're actually going to just be like, nah, let's just going to TP in, let's 5v5, and let's see if it works. But that might be maybe a strategic weakness for either or both of these sides not being able to use them unless someone decides they can do it. So how these top laners allocate their time, we will be paying close attention to. Now, Rory, quickly before we go over to the drafters, quick word on Broad's comp, just because we touched on Gucci's quite a lot, but they've got the...
Yeah, sure. So I don't love the Camille that much, but I know it's a big Aka's pick. So that was him really just asking for something to blind. So I'm okay with that. I think the Orianna, it can work. It can work. You can give Zeta the ball. You can give the Camille the ball and just say, get some magic done. But I don't... Their bot lane really needs to succeed. Otherwise, they're in a bit of trouble. In this early game, like some serious trouble.
And if game one is anything to go by, it could be a tall order. So we'll see if Spark and Zeta can have a better early game. We'll see where the top laners end up as we get into mid and late. But for now, let's see if Broad can get this win. Remember, everybody, if they win this game, if they win this series, they lock RPS. If they don't, their year ends and Gucci can advance further into the lower bracket. Let's pass it back over to Bloxer and Melee for game number 2.
Thank you guys so much. I still don't understand why someone has to pilot Renekton, because last time I checked he wasn't a plane, but hey, maybe that's some English-speaking stuff that I don't understand. I just want to know your thoughts on this draft, because I'm not entirely satisfied.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one from both of these teams, where it felt like they were going in real significant directions, and then at the last minute, both of these compositions have kind of deviated their ways away. As Rory was pointing out, right, the Camille doesn't feel great, but then again, you get yourself that little bit of the ego check from Loopy, where the Renekton matchup, all of a sudden, you actually can play it. There were a couple of tanks top lane where I think the Camille just doesn't really get going. You needed some sort of ball delivery system for Broad and Friends. I agree that you really need to get the Yanara going, but can you in this lane matchup? Not just we saw that Rhythm and Chompy were able to take over in that bot lane matchup previously, but the Ezreal Karma is just a hard lane matchup to get yourself ahead in anyway. It's going to take some very careful engages out of Zeta, or a lot of ganks out of Porp to potentially make things happen bot lane. I'm not saying you can't do it as Broad and Friends, but it does feel a little bit risky. For Gucci, I think they've got a couple bits where it's a bit easier to execute right. You can start any of these team fights off with a Korosh flash, dump your entire kit on top of somebody, they go bye-bye, now you can play the rest of the team fight. If that doesn't happen though, I do worry a little bit about the way that this composition can really play, either in a front-to-back or in a messy team fight.
I'm a little worried about Gucci's general mental state right now. Not in a, like, not even in a meme type of way, but just considering you just had a game that you took over after, I want to say, 5 minutes by feeding kills after kills after kills into your AD carry, and you still weren't able to close it out. Obviously, because you made crucial mistakes is when, you know, one team fight can decide the entire game. But I'm a little worried they will have a hard time moving on from, especially considering that their draft may also have some weak points.
Yeah, the draft doesn't feel like it's as coherent overall, right? If you maybe had yourself that Orianna over on the other side, over on the Gucci side, maybe I'd be a little bit less worried. Oh, cool, you're going for a bit of a wombo combo, and then, you know, you're just having the Ezreal sat on the outside peppering the damage into the middle. But with the Annie looking for the picks, and then the Jarvan and the Ezreal looking for, like, slower, more front-to-back kind of fighting, and we'll see how far ahead Loopy can get with this Renekton, because you can totally take over this lane matchup, but you can also give one accidental kill over, and it can be very hard. I think something also worth mentioning is that I really do like what Porp has for himself here in the Poppy. I think you're going to have a lot of use out of that steadfast presence, and also just in these messy teamfights we've been seeing, the ability to just take a couple members of Gucci, punt them into next week, and deal with who's in front of you is going to make these teamfights a heck of a lot easier to execute for them.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask you about your prediction though, because I think you are also with the 2-1 for Broad in the end, but you know. Do you still stick with that one, or if you look at this draft specifically, you're like, okay, no, maybe it's going to be a 2-0 actually?
Ooh. looking straight at the drafts, maybe there's a chance for there to be a 2-0, but I don't feel like the drafts themselves actually had that much to do with what happened in the previous game. You know, these teams were throwing themselves at each other, we had some crazy outplay moments, we had just some really good plays out of Chompy to make things work, and so just thinking about the way that these teams play, I think we're going to get 3 games. I'd be quite surprised if Broad are able to cleanly 2-0. If they do, that makes them a very scary team going on forwards, right? Obviously, this is the first round matchup that we're going to have for this week. We're going to have another matchup on Thursday between... Oh, God.
Rise and Venom Crest.
Rise and Venom Crest. And the winner of that, if you're facing into a 2-0 Broad and Friends, I'd be quite scared.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've been putting themselves in a really nice position, especially with that game 1. We briefly talked about it in the green room. That of course we have to consider like what is Gucci's mental coming in after a loss like that, but how insane was Broad's mental actually coming back during that game, knowing that early game was lost, like early game was gone.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those games where you come out of it and you're like, boy, we got away with one there, lads. You know, let's take a step back, let's take a breather. We're all happy, but we messed that one up in a lot of different situations, and we are lucky that our opponents, I'll be honest, kind of threw us the victory over. Good job on Broad and Friends for being able to catch, and they were proactive, right? I think that's something that's also worth mentioning for their mental. They got behind and stopped playing the game. It wasn't like Porp was like, ah, cool, I'm just gonna go PV in my jungle and you guys have fun. It wasn't like we saw, I don't know, Zeta just sit back and not try to keep finding his engages, even though the Nautilus wasn't really working out. In the end, he finds a couple of those key hooks. And QQR, when he had himself that scatter available, was hitting it every single time. So they kept themselves in that game and then were able to catch the good Chi throw. I think their mentals are going to be doing good. I just hope that they can take a breather between games and not necessarily fix mistakes. I think some of those mistakes were a little bit draft dependent. I wouldn't expect you to have the exact same problems into an Ezreal Karma as you had into that Jhin Neeko. Those are very different lanes, but you still do need to recognize that there were a couple moments where we got a little bit too high-fee. We were going for engages in situations we didn't have. If we can shore up those mistakes, we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, we've been talking a little bit about how Chompy has had a massive game in that game 1 on the Neeko, so let's see if he can make it happen on the Karma again, even though it's a very different, play style, if you want to put it that way. But very impressive performance by him in that first game, even though it didn't result in a win in the end. So let's see if Gucci can fight back, or if it's actually going to be Broad and Friends going through with the 2-0, which I think not many of us would have expected to happen.
No, I don't think anybody would have expected it to be a 2-0 for Broad and Friends. Looking at that in-season form, if anybody was going to 2-0 in this close matchup, it would very much have felt like a good Chi. And so far, Broad and Friends, they've just looked that little bit better. We're jumping on into this one, and we'll see where these junglers are starting. It looks like it's going to be opposite side starts as, hang on, these bot lanes are being aggressive.
Yep, it kind of starts off where they left off in last game, with the Ignite coming through already for Zeta here. And then we're moving towards topside. I don't think this matchup is going to be too interesting in the early stages of the game. Of course, both of them, Loopy and Ackers, will be impactful if we look towards team fights. Both of the ultimates doing a lot. We can see another root coming through, and they have to be very careful here. Oh my god, that's the first blood. Chompy ends up going down. That puts Spark in a very nice position because Yunara, people are usually not necessarily on the same page of how they feel about her. Some say early game, super strong, oh my god, falls off later. Others say early game, omega useless, that's the point where you gotta hit her, but becomes stronger over time. I think this is a very good showing of what makes her strong in the early stages, if you actually manage to, pick up the kills. And I'm very excited to see what Spark is going to, pull out on this champ.
Exactly, because that quadra kill at the end of the previous game is what seals the deal for Broad and Friends. Get them up 1-0 in this matchup, and now he's playing from ahead. You can see already headed back to base, is going to grab a cull as well. So he's just going to look to stack up that cash as early as possible, get you to that first item. I'd imagine it's going to be a Kraken Slayer. That's usually the build path I end up seeing for these Yunaras. And this is a really key matchup in which you want to get yourself that early kill, because you have to do it before the poke starts coming through. You let this lane matchup develop over the course of the next couple of minutes, and over time, you're just going to get worn down by an Ezreal and a Karma. But instead, they snap engage, go for it, and actually talking of snap engages.
Yep, we're getting another one on the top side, even though Loopy should be able to dodge relatively much, even uses the
Lovely.
flash, manages to stay alive. I think it's interesting that you mentioned the Yunara item build because there have been some different approaches to it. I feel like a lot of people are going with the Kraken Slayer, of course, towards tankier members, whilst if you're playing into squishes, you do like that Bork, as we can see. Spark going down because Rhythm just decided to, you know, find something there, and also a very nice roam, of course, coming through from For Sure here, making sure that his AD carry gets to secure a kill as well, which puts them in a bit more of an even position here again after the first 4 minutes being done.
Yeah, good for them to be able to just grab that little bit extra back, and this bot lane seems like it's just going to continue being as explosive as possible. It's exactly what we were really expecting from both of these teams, right? They like to play around their bot lanes if they can get them ahead. I think in this game, something about the Orianna just sits wrong with me. I feel like Rory was expressing it too. I think the reason I'm not such a big fan of the Orianna is not because QQR's bad at it, but because he was so good in the previous game with that little bit of proactivity you get on a Syndra. The Orianna's very much more a reactive pick, unless you can find that one big ulti, right? You get that big ball delivery into the back line and the big shockwave off. That's awesome. But in terms of just the average play, you chuck in that ball forwards for a command attack does nowhere near as much as you're going to see with a Syndra shoving out the ball, you know, getting that big scatter the weak off. That's a big game-changing play that Orianna just doesn't have. So I wonder what QQR can do to really impact this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't really have the easiest time here. Definitely. But I think if you can manage to, you know, not depend on Orianna,
Yeah.
maybe
Oh, hang
actually
on.
find... What? No, they're fine. We're fine. We're good. We're not doing too much. We're hanging out. We're just vibing.
Okay,
on
but
this bot
For
lane
Sure
right
is
now.
here.
Okay, For Sure definitely did not come to vibe. He's looking forward to find something as they are picking up another one onto Spark. He has
Oh,
to
the
use
barrier?
the barrier. Just manages to stay alive like that. Now they're stepping further forward. That's another kill for Rhythm. He gets ignited, but manages to make it out just in time with that flash. Wow, okay. So Gochi definitely want to try and funnel that gold into their AD carry again, just the way they did last game. And
There
so
you go.
far, so good.
Yeah, it takes the flash forwards right there out of Rhythm to get that final auto attack off. Nearly got debated by the barrier on Spark. That doesn't end up happening. We are also going to see the flash away in the mid lane too right here. And this is a ton of flashes gone. I mean, the majority of the champions at this point have lost out onto that key tool. It is going to be the dragon started up. Porp is in the area. Don't know if he's going to be able to steal this one away. He has the chance.
He's looking for it.
He takes it!
Actually manages to find it. Okay, that's the steal. And that's the first Drake, the Mountain Drake, going over to the blue side, to Broad and Friends, as they're looking for a little bit more here with Pope stepping forward. Finds two. The damage is just not quite there with the rest of the team not being able to move in just as quickly. And therefore, Gochi stay alive. But that was a beautiful steal right there.
Yeah, that is exactly what you want to see. And it's really unfortunate in the early game that you do just get out smote right there. You chuck down a Q, press your smite button as the Poppy, and you just do more damage in a quick burst than For Sure has available to him. Even if he tries to Q smite, that's not going to do quite as much. The thing is, you've got your whole team there, and Porp is by himself. You can coordinate that one a little bit better, land all of your abilities at once, probably take that one away. Still, it doesn't end up happening. Broad get that steal, and this game looks like it's already turning out to be another banger.
Jesus, I really did not expect this. I mean, I knew that it's probably going to be exciting just because of the stakes of it, right? Whoever loses here is out. But at the same time, I did not expect it to be that intense. I did not expect the teams to especially be that intense during early game.
Yeah. They don't know how to
It's
chill.
crazy. Yeah,
It's the
no.
UKL. Something in the air just gets these teams feeling like they must go forwards, must fight as much as possible. And out of this early game, it is going to be a small gold lead for Good Chi, about 500, so nothing too much to write home about. It would be interesting to see the individual gold. If we could get that at some point, it would be nice to see. As right now, For Sure was hunting into the top lane, looking to potentially get himself a gank off. Is just going to turn around and grab these grubs, though. And this is, again, another one of those key objectives to be able to grab. There's not going to be any response out of Broad. No chance for a steal here.
Yeah, very nice push for Loopy, which of course sets him up beautifully, as well as knowing that Pop was towards that bot side. So he will not be in time. Now we can even see the Annie moving in as well, so they really want to make sure they're picking up these 3 Void Grubs uncontested. And yeah, I mean, it's perfect for them. It's kind of the same the same playstyle we saw them bring out during game 1.
Yeah.
Very early game heavy, very aggressive, as they now have to be a little bit careful because Akers is going in with the Hextech ultimatum pop in the area now, as well as the Cataclysm is being used.
No.
There comes the Shockwave, beautifully done here. Foreshore goes down. Loopy with the Dominus trying to buy some time, but it's not going to be enough, and that's the Feat of Warfare secured for Broughton Friends. So yes, you pick up the 3 Void Grabs, but at what cost, as they are now looking to maybe get even more on this bot side here, with the ultimate coming through, doing so much damage. The lasers are just there, barrier being used. I think Rhythm just might make it out. Now they have to respect the turret range here. But that is... You know, that is Yunara for you right there. That Yunara ultimate is so insanely valuable if you use it right.
Yeah, you just pop that ulti and you can sprint at people. Now that it's worn off, though, you are just going to have to turn around, step away. There's also that you just had completely lost vision of Kurosh. Had started walking down towards the bottom lane, you keep up the pressure there, you're going to get Annie ganked, and without key abilities available, it would have turned into a kill. Bottom Friends still establishing a bit of dominance in the bottom side. The more interesting thing, I think, up in the top side is that we got to see a little bit of anti-synergy, let's say, where Foreshore chucks himself down that Cataclysm. Yay, I've grabbed Torp! That's a wall. Heroic Charge immediately stuns Foreshore, and he ends up losing his life in that situation. It is just a little thing that Foreshore's going to have to think about going on forwards. Anytime he chucks down that Cataclysm, it's just more terrain for Akers to jump over and for Porp to stun you into.
Yeah, definitely. I think Pop might actually be a little under the radar for me. I'm usually not the biggest fan of Poppy. I do like her on support. I don't really like her on top lane because I feel like she's not that strong of a split pusher. But I think Pop might actually have a really good position to play that champion, just because of the ultimate and being able to put yourself at a numbers advantage for team fights, especially when it comes towards objectives, as we're now seeing a little bit of a chase going on here with the Annie on the run. Should be able to make it out just fine. The plant will give some vision, but I'm not quite sure that's going to be enough, as they're dancing around each other a little bit. But Foreshore is in the area as well, and I think Pop knows and has to respect that. But he ends up going in again. Here comes the Tibbers. Tibbers is doing a decent amount of damage, but Pop, of course, has some time, uses the flash to get out of that Cataclysm, and that's 2 ultimates used on the side of Gucci. Now Loopy moving in as well. But it's just not going to be enough to pick up a kill here for either side.
No, even more flashes being blown, even more aggression attempted here, but nobody is actually going to go down. Bot lane, we are also seeing plenty of poke coming on through. Gucci are always going to win out on that poke war. The Spark does have that ulti back up and available, right? And any time that Transcend is available, let's see if Spark's just going to go running at them again. The flash has returned for Rhythm, so he's going to be extra safe at this point. Still, you have to respect it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh god, I can't say that.
Nope.
For sure. Oh,
bad.
No. Hang on. That's not what I meant. Bro's in the area, but not like that. But yeah, I think Ezreal is overall still a very hard target for you to catch, a hard target for you to lock down. So let's see if they can make it happen. The first thing Gochi want to make happen here is the Drake. They lost the first one by a little bit, but now they're looking to pick up the second one. Pop stepped a little bit too far forward. Yes, he found several members, but he doesn't have the follow-up damage right there just yet. With them now moving in, maybe they can actually manage to pick it up. Foreshore ends up going down. They're picking up the kills here, but there's also an ADC on the other side of the ramp, and that is Rhythm managing to stay alive just barely. But it's, again, no chance to pick up the dragon, and you can see Spark is even a little bit on a chase.
Yep.
But in the end, it is 3 kills on Rhythm now, so they are feeding into their AD carry. But once again, we thought Pop overstepped here, but he managed to buy so much time and poke them down so much that the rest of the team was able to capitalize off of that, and the Drake is still there.
You can now take your resets, get a little bit of extra gold into those inventories, and come back out and try and do it all again. Yeah, I think it was a little bit over-aggressive from Pop on the initial bit of engage. That's that first item not quite through at that point, but now he's got it available to him, and he does just draw the members of Gucci a little bit too far forwards. We were questioning earlier, I was questioning earlier, how much QQR was really going to be able to do on this Orianna. Well, 3-0-2 is already stacking up towards that. Seraphs has just been able to put himself in a great spot. Zeta knew that he was caught. It's just going to flash over the back of that pit wall. So that's a key bit of engage now going to be gone off of Brodom Friends. And yeah, Infernal Drake still available. Mid lane push hasn't really been established by either of these teams. Let's see if they're going to try fight for that first and then head down to the Drake, or if they just want to get things started.
And we're kind of waiting for someone to pull the trigger on that. As we can see, Broad are kind of overloading a little bit towards this bot side with Pop in the tri-bush. You can also see QQR moving down as well.
They know. They know something's
Gochi are
up.
like, yeah, they're respecting this. They're like,
Yep.
not this time.
Yeah, and I mean, with the Ezreal, right, you could just be Mystic Shotting from so far away. You're not too worried about getting zoned away from waves. Still, that is going to get you a lot of pressure around this Dragon Pit, and it is going to be the Drake started up right here by Broad. There's a return fight here onto QQR.
QQR is stuck in the Cataclysm with
He's living!
Tibbers. He's living
Yo!
because of the shockwave. Because he found the shockwave, he was actually managing to buy some
Oh,
time.
no.
Solar Flare goes wide. That's not quite where you wanted it to be as the stun comes through onto Pop here. And now Tibbers is still trying to put in some work, but the rest of the team is finally able to follow up. The stun comes through, and now they should be able to pick up this kill. QQR on a rampage. And that is a very dead Karma. And again, the dragon is still there. And it is once again Pop moving in towards the Drake pit and starting it off. And this time, it doesn't look like Gochi are trying to contest this because
Nope.
how would you?
Yeah. I mean, Seraph's is an item. It wasn't even upgraded.
Yep.
It was. It
Yeah.
wasn't even upgraded at that point, but it still just gives you so much extra survivability right there as QQR. Getting jumped by both an Annie and the Jarvan, and now you're locked in the fighting pit with Tibbers, should spell disaster. That should be the death of QQR and the death of the Drake to Gochi, but it just doesn't work out like that. QQR buying so much time. He's been playing so well. He was immaculate in the early game of the previous one. He's now been able to play really well in the start of this one too. And Gochi, they've got to feel like their playoffs is beginning to slip through their fingers at this point.
And it's so sad because, again, they have been doing a decent job at funneling gold into their AD carry. They have been able to pick up the Void Grubs again, which is exactly what they were able to do in the last game. And it looked so good once they had that Baron buff with the 3 Grubbies stepping forward, you know, moving across the map. But this time around, Broad seemed to be a little better prepared for the early game power that Gochi seemed to bring today.
Yep.
And that 4-0... That 4-0 Orianna was definitely not on my bingo card. You know, we
No.
were both kind of like, not sure she has the best ball delivery system here. It's not going to go too well. But here we are, and
Never
we're actually
mind.
looking at the Yunara item build now, and we see it's not the Kraken Slayer. It is the Blade of the Ruined King. And that kind of shows that they're not too worried about the tankiness of the enemy members here as well.
No,
So
I mean,
it's
Renekton hasn't
very
been a part of this
interesting.
game yet. I don't know that we've
Yeah.
looked at Loopy throughout the entirety of this game. There were a couple attempted ganks top lane.
He
that
died
don't really
once.
work out. He did
That's
die
what
once.
I remember.
I barely actually remember when that happened. Other than that, Renekton has not been a part of this game. Now you do finally have yourself that Stridebreaker completed, so let's see if Loopy can get himself involved. With the Stridebreaker as well, you're being very aggressive with this build. This is not your usual, hey, I'm going to be a little bit extra tanky and go for the kills. No, you are looking to get into the backline. And I do like that because somebody has to. You really need to have a dive buddy alongside your Jarvan.
Oh, and they're looking for it again. Hextech Ultimatum coming through. That's already a
Okay,
decent amount of
bye.
damage. The kill comes through. I'm not sure about the Solar Flare, but let's not talk about it. As we can see, Tibbers coming through now as well, doing a decent amount of work. That's a shutdown going over to the Karma. But Loopy has already used his Dominus in order to buy some time, because he did eat some damage in that front of the fight right there. As Pop is stepping further forward, tried to find a little bit of a catch there again onto Chumpy, but it's not quite enough.
Nope.
But I think you're still very happy about
Yeah.
this on the side of Broad, because you got to shut down that AD carry. You got to shut down Rhythm. Yes, you pay with Akers' life, but I think at this point it's okay.
It's not going to be the end of the world. You just give the kill over to Foreshore as well. A little bit over-aggressive from Broad, but I like that they're still being proactive. They're still trying to make things happen on the map right now, because we do have a little bit until we've got our next set of real objectives spawning up. 2 minutes until we've got the next Drake. It will be Soul Point if you can pick it up here for Broad and Friends, and it is going to be a pretty critical soul to be able to grab as well. I think Cloud is something all of these teams are really going to like to have for themselves.
I love how it's always, you know, that soul being the pro play soul that everyone loves, but it always shows that you need talent for that one. You know, you got to work with the tempo. As we're now looking at the gold.
Whoa,
Bot lane is
look at the
actually
gold
looking
mid.
relatively even, but mid lane is nuts.
That's a huge gap right there. That's a full 2k gap between these mid laners, and you can really feel it in the way that every single time Korosh drops that full Annie combo, you expect it to be a 100-0 insta-kill. And it's just not. It just hasn't been throughout the entirety of this game, whereas QQR, he's actually doing serious work without the ulti. Yes, the ulti's still dealing good damage and is the big ulti shockwave. Everybody loves it. It's awesome. It's fun.
Yeah.
But without
of
it,
course.
still hitting like a truck, still actually being able to buy a lot of space, a lot of time for the team. Ooh, Akers might be caught
A
here.
little bit of a catch here. Akers going into the Hextech Ultimatum, trying to deal some damage, but now
Nice.
with Karma moving in again, I think that should be it. Loopy with the kill. And you take it. I think Gochi are happy with every kill they can take, with every little bit of gold that they can take. They still have a whole lot of standing gold on the map with all the tier 1 turrets still being there. So maybe that is where they need to set their sights
Yeah.
in order to fight back in this game.
Absolutely, Gucci. They're going to have to find themselves a couple of picks like this. Their composition really does work for picks, and then once you've got that initial pick, they're 4v5 with a slow front to back, a little bit of poke, grab yourself someone in the Cataclysm, go to town on them with your poke through from the Ezreal, and then just big damage from your Renekton. It is very much going to work for them. Still, it requires you to get that initial pick, which Brod and Friends have done a pretty good job so far of stopping from happening. With all of that play that we saw up in the top lane, we have now gotten to the Drake, going to be spawning up in 5 seconds time. And it is now going to be this Rift Herald here onto the mid lane just to get that little bit of extra priority on through for Bottom Friends.
Well, we're getting a little bit of a taxi drive here coming through for Spark. He's in it to win it. They end up picking up the turret.
Don't.
And now...
No. I saw Pop walk towards the Herald
No,
for that second
no.
charge. Do not. Bad. Do not
It's-
pass go. Do not collect 200 on that one. Peel back. Go for the Drake. That is exactly what we are going to get. And yeah, Cloud Drake, it would be important for Bottom Friends.
Definitely they're putting themselves at that soul point. And we can see that Gucci are not going to try to contest this one. Yes, there's an Ezreal ultimate flying through our screen, but it's not quite enough. Question is, will they actually go for the Atakan as well? It doesn't look like it.
No,
But,
not
you
for
know,
right now.
sometimes we see it, you know, a team just getting a little overly excited, being like, oh, we can pick up this one, maybe we can pick up both of them.
Yeah.
In this case, they were going for the safer choice.
Yeah, to be fair, in that situation, Akers had teleport available and Loopy didn't at that moment, right? It's only just come up about now. So there was maybe the tiniest window in which you would have had yourself a 5v4 and could have tried for it. I do agree, though, with the decision to not. You just keep pushing on through these lanes. Don't throw around this Atakan, right? It's just such a great place for you to lose everything you've worked hard for 20 minutes to build.
Definitely. Definitely. So Atakan, currently the only neutral objective on the map. Let's see if that is actually a target someone wants to go for, someone wants to commit to. Doesn't really look like it just now as they're clearing up some vision in the tri-bush. And then we're, of course, waiting for a Baron to spawn in about 3.5 minutes. And now the True Shot Barrage flying through our screens. But it's really more of a vision type thing. They want to check, is someone at Atakan, are they actually doing it? As we're seeing the next teamfight coming through, Solar Flare hits onto that as well. And that is a very dead Chompy. Had to use his heal, but didn't actually end up making much of a difference. And now, again, with the numbers advantage, this is where Broad can actually turn towards this Atakan and succeed.
Yeah, should just be picked up nice and easily. Forshaw is, of course, in the area, so he could potentially try for a steal. Instead, it looks like they're going to try and make a play work mid lane.
Oh, Akers finally trying something here as well with the Hextech Ultimatum. Manages to pick up
Wow.
a little bit of a kill
Highway
there.
robbery.
Yeah,
My God.
crazy.
My
Crazy.
God, the fact that you get a pick in the river, and then you get yourself just that quick solo kill right there onto Rhythm, whilst you're also getting the Atakan. Now Akker's going to keep on walking forwards.
Akers is trying a little too hard here maybe as the Tippers is coming through, but he manages
Oh,
to stay alive.
nice.
Flashes forward. Now they are looking to turn onto the Annie. Their way, he goes down as well. Tippers a little bit on a hunt here, but doesn't actually end up doing too much with Akers healing himself up, and they're stepping further forward. That mid lane tier 2 turret is still standing, which is good news in that scenario for Gucci because it keeps them safe just a tiny little bit. Without the wave, there's not really a big chance of Broad pushing further forward, but they did manage to pick up that dragon. They did manage to put themselves at that soul point, and they are now about 3k ahead.
Yeah. This right here is Brod and Friends' game to lose. Now, if what we saw in the previous game is any indication, that means we're expecting a massive throw out of Brod. And I'll be honest, not just the previous game, the entire split. Brod and Friends have very much been a thrower in a lot of situations. I'm hopeful that this is not going to be the situation, although I actually would quite like a third game. At the end of the third game, who cares who wins, right? We just want a little bit more league. But if we do want to see a Broad and Friends going forwards, if you're a Broad and Friends fan, them not throwing an early lead, brilliant. Them clawing their way back from an early deficit, brilliant. That's a lot of things we haven't seen from them throughout the entirety of this. And if this is Broad and Friends actually being able to shore up a couple of their weaknesses, other teams in the league had better watch out.
I completely agree. I think Broad are looking very strong, very secure in this game too.
Yeah.
And even in that game 1, they definitely showed mental strength, 100%. And that is something that if I was to play against them, I would definitely keep track of that, because it looks as if they have developed massively throughout the past few weeks.
Yep.
Now, there's still a chance for Gucci to try and turn this around. Again, there's a lot of standing gold on the map. Both tier 1 turrets, mid lane and bot lane, are still standing. So if they were to pick up one of those, it would definitely help to even it out a little bit. And then there are, of course, the individual shutdowns on Pop,
shutdown.
on QQR, on Spark. So if you actually were to find a catch, especially a catch onto QQR, that would pay off massively. But it's going to be really hard. I mean, look at that. Ugh. It's a little disgusting, you know?
And it keeps getting worse. Every time we check back in on the gold here, it gets worse. Every single time. This is just a massively expanding gold lead.
Do you know those goosebumps you get when you find something very disgusting? Like when it's... Like, ugh. Yeah, that's what I got when I looked at that gold difference on mid lane. Very disgusting, as Akers now has to be a little bit careful. Should be caught out here. He tries to shield himself a little bit. They're looking for more. Goes into the Hextech ultimatum. They're actually committing 5 members on the top side. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Is they are now looking to maybe go on a hunt. But what are they losing across the map? Yes, Akers goes down, but the waves are being pushed both on bot side and on mid lane. And instead of starting off the Baron, it seems that they're playing with the thumb for another back pause. Pop has to be a little bit careful. Stepped a little too far forward here. The chain connects from
but the turn damage.
Stepping forward, but QQR is taking over the fight. True Shot Barrage coming through. Tipper is also in the area, but the damage output for Pop and QQR is just massive. Spark now also unleashed with the ultimate, stepping forward, even using the flash. And that is just Gucci going down at this point. They tried to catch there, but they were a little indecisive. And in the end, the damage output on the side of Broad is just big enough. They don't need Akers because they have everyone else online.
As Gucci, you get yourself that pick in the top lane. I think the recalls would have been the correct decision because you were beginning to lose out onto those mid lane towers, or you start yourself up that Baron and you play a little bit more front to back, but instead it gets messy. It gets way too aggressive from Gucci, trying to get a pick onto Porp, and Porp is really fast. He puts up that steadfast presence, he gets himself a command protect out of QQR, and he is zooming on out of there. It draws the members of Gucci out of position, and Broad and Friends are able to turn and burn them down. Now with Baron buffs in inventory, they're also going to be starting up this Drake. This is Soul here for Broad and Friends, and there's nothing that Gucci can do about it.
They really look like they're getting outplayed, and it looks as if they're kind of lacking the creativity to find angles to come back. Yes, you find the catch onto Akers, which is a good call, but then you just overforce it, you overstep it a little bit, getting a bit too brave. And that's just not something you can afford at this point in the game. And now with the Baron buff, you can see that tier 2 turrets melting away. And they have the soul as well. I mean, okay, you as my color caster, you as my trusty color caster. Hang on, I'm just gonna check if Loopy survives this. He's in a Hextech ultimatum. He's using his ultimate. He doesn't have flash. QQR in the area as well. Yeah, he definitely does not survive that one. But as my trusty color caster, what do you say? What are the options that Gucci still have here? Because back's against the wall. Either you find a way to turn this around or you're out.
Yeah, they have to go for picks right here. Looks like they're going to grab a little bit of one onto Zeta. He's so tanky though, and gets that solar flare off.
It looks so good with the soul if they're coming through. Pop is actually able to pick that one up. Use his ultimate to throw away some of the damage output coming through from Rhythm here. And now they are looking to just move into the base and take over the game and end it right here, right now, with Rhythm being the last one standing there, looking to open up not only this base, but to end the game and therefore move further forward in this playoffs in the UKEL. And we wouldn't have expected them to come in that clean today because they have been struggling. Broad and Friends, they have not been of their game, but neither have Gucci. And today it pays off for Broad. They're looking to maybe find something here, but Loopy again, he comes back up, he dies instantly, and that's it. That's the ace. Yes, there is a karma, but it doesn't matter because this is the Broad show, and Broad are moving forward 2-0.
2-0 Broad. I think even the staunchest Broad supporter probably didn't think it was going to be a 2-0.
I mean, look, I said in the green room, I was like, if Broad win this UKL split, I'll buy a jersey.
Yeah.
Because I got to see the jersey on the weekend in Stockholm,
It
and
was
it's
nice.
it's hot, right?
It was good.
But I did not expect
No.
that it looked like it looks so convincing. I might actually have to start saving some
Yeah.
money on the side.
Yeah. I mean, if the Broad and friends that we're seeing going on forwards, yeah, the winner of that matchup we've got, right, between Venom Crest and Rise, you better watch out. You better be thinking long and hard about whether or not you're going to be able to beat this team. You've got to start planning for them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
This is not just Broad and friends moving on in the playoffs, which is incredibly important, right? This is an organization that is hunting for their first LAN finals. This is the organization that's kicked off the LAN events unofficially by bringing people in summer last year to a gaming bar in Manchester. And this was the beginning for us, right? They want to come to an official LAN final. But beyond that, the key thing for everybody is RPS, and that is going to qualify them to RPS. All they had to do was win themselves a single game. We now know that it's going to be Venom Crest and Broad and Friends as our representatives up against the other national leagues in the NLC region. Massive congratulations to Broad,
Yeah.
and I can't believe that they did it. Even though I had them winning today 2-1, I'm still shocked in the way they were able to win this one here today.
Absolutely, and again, we got to talk about the mental strength they brought in for that game number 1, but then showing up so convincing in game number 2, it definitely makes you feel a little bit of excitement looking forward to what's to come. On the other hand, I gotta say, I'm a little heartbroken for Gucci. Their early games looked very, very good, and I think there is a lot of positives to take away from them, but it's of course never a good position to be in, never a nice position to be in, and I just hope that they can come back stronger once their time is there. That's it from our time, that's it from us on the caster desk, and we're giving it back to our beautiful analysts to once again try and figure out what happened there.
That was.
Because, you know, I mean, Rory looked really sad after that game 1, and I'm a little worried about what we're going to see now. So, you know, someone maybe give him a tissue, give him a hug, but let's see for ourselves. Back to the desk, guys.
Thank you, casters. We can tell you what that was. That was pure Broad dominance for 27 minutes. That's what that was. That was such a different story from game number 1. And rare is now the occasion where Broad and Friends closes out a win without keeping everyone's heart rate a little bit above 150. So props to them for getting their heads in gear. And SIM, you know, vindicated as you are with a clean 2-0 prediction. You must be feeling pretty happy about that.
In a way, yes. Even though this, depending on some decision making in game 1, could have been an entirely different series. If you then go over game number 2, it was just so completely dominant by Broad. And of course, it is also just from the other side, right? Like for Gucci, it's so difficult to come back from just having victory within reach, only to have it slip away from such close vicinity, to then having to play another game. That in this scenario, it just Broad that just takes it away.
God damn that damage chart.
Yeah. I mean, even just the fact that Akers is putting up such massive numbers, while, you know, it looked like it looked very much like the QQR show for large swathes of that, and he's got second place and he's done more than anyone on Chi's side. But Rory, Chi just were non-existent in this game, you know. It felt like they had a strong lane to play through bot, they had a good mid jungle to play through, but we just never really saw it activate.
Yeah, I didn't love Chompy's performance on the Karma this game. I thought without the tankiness that his usual picks have, he was really struggling to get into skirmishes. And that was a real detriment to the team. Korosh could not play this game. At least that's what it felt like. So it was sad to see this Annie really not able to do anything.
Yeah, we didn't have time to run the head-to-head graphic in the pre-show, but we were going to run QQR versus Korosh, mainly for the reason that Korosh has been so good, and QQR, while plays a valuable role in the Broad formula, is not a dominant player necessarily, and was what I was wondering if that would be the point where Good Chi could push and exploit. And then we said it in that draft, the Annie Jarvan, this is the time when QQR is going to have his head in a swivel. But again, it was all about bot lane. And by the time they come back to mid lane, QQR, who's had an absolute slammer game, is already 3-0 with an item and Merc Treads, and they can't even kill him. 1v2, they can't do anything to him. And QQR just absolutely popped it. So props to the guy for showing up when they needed and stepping up against some of the toughest competition in that lane in this region. He will be our player of the game for the second game there, with some wonderful numbers going up there. So SIM for the kind of that mid matchup, the QQR into Kurosh thing, and just in that second game, yeah, it really felt like Kurosh could not get a toe into this game, and QQR was just everywhere.
Like, Kurosh did really try to put it into second gear, maybe even more just from the get-go in laning, because we did see QQR struggle when it just came to the levels pre-6. But with that, we've also seen that QQR has been pushed in the tower, where he can still farm fairly efficiently, and it's really difficult for a Jarvan to get a setup to maybe get a dive happen, because it's mid lane, the lane is just really short, and there's no Karma that can assist you fairly easily, like maybe another dive champion that you could have drafted as a support. So it is really difficult to pivot to that mid lane if Kurosh is this important. Plus you take into account that it is still an Annie we're talking about. Like, Annie is not one of those main carry champions, it's one of those champions that just gives more utility, gives the engage, and after that the rest of the team has to come to clean up. So if Rhythm now has a good laning phase, he's set up for success, it might actually happen. But we also look at top lane, can Loopy maybe also get ahead into his lane, and we can actually get some team fights happening, but that didn't happen. So now this utility pick also just falls flat in that regard.
Yeah, it was just a shocker, unfortunately, for Chi, when they needed to have something to turn it around after losing control of game 1, and sadly Broad was able to take it. Now, with that win, Broad have secured their place in the RPS. The only way now for Belfast Storm to secure the second, I believe, is to win the entire split. They may not even actually be able to do so. I wonder if Venomcrest has actually already locked the first spot. So we'll have the boffins check that. I'm sure Micah who is our Foldy Sheet master and League Ops spreadsheet expert will be able to tell us. But I feel like Venomcrest and Broad and Friends might be our locked RPS teams, but there might be a shot for Belfast if they win the whole split. We'll get that confirmed as soon as we can. But we can see that Broad and Fred advance here to face the winner of Rise Gaming and Venomcrest. So that's going to be our matchup on Thursday. Rory, to give us a little kind of preview, what are your thoughts ahead of Rise and Venomcrest, given the massive turnaround we've seen from Venomcrest, kind of similar to Good Chi at the end, and then Rise Gaming often occupying the same space in the standings that Broad is, with a lot of the same players like Sin and Jamsu, right? There's a lot of history between those two rosters.
It's going to be an absolute banger game, because Rise are coming off an absolute shellacking by Belfast Storm in their previous match, whereas it was a pretty easy walk over Absolve coming for Venomcrest. So it's really, are we seeing a massive just upwards climb for Venomcrest?
Yeah, it's the same. One's going down, one's going up. And they're meeting in the same way that Broad got knocked out on a very kind of embarrassing way to meet Chi on the way up. So similar dynamic there. And certainly I imagine will give us some big moments to look back on fondly perhaps. And they will be going on to face Broad in the next round. But as we said, that lower bracket is full of contenders, right? Every one of those kind of teams has shown us so much good that they can all... There's arguments to be made for any of them, right, at any point. So Broad came out today. SIM, if you had to give us any last thoughts on potentially that Rise Venomcrest matchup, or kind of Broad's chances to make it further, because obviously that has been the goal for Broad. Goal number 1, get RPS, achieved. Goal number 2, make it to LAN. Can they actually do it?
For Broad and Friends, I can still see it happening. Like, as you've seen today as well, we cannot just go off the tourney that played beforehand. Best of ones and best of threes are just two completely different forms of ways of playing. Like, as you can see today, Mental Fortitude also has a really big role to play into that. So if Broad and Friends can just keep themselves pumped, keep themselves hyped, of course you can start the game with